So hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to So we are back with a brand new movie on what if Naruto has despair awakened the digital and hidden heroes. But before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. The four have been found, a female voice said to herself in the darkness of the night as she gazed into a crystal ball. She gazed into the crystal ball and watched as a boy with blonde hair in an orange jumpsuit stood on an execution platform. She then let out a sad sigh as she looked at the cheering crowd. The ball then switched views to a boy with brown hair in a ponytail that oddly looked like a pineapple watched as his friend was about to be executed with sorrow and anger in his eyes. The ball then changed scenes to a girl with brown red hair being berated by her brother in their apartment before he angrily left their home to go with his friends, never noticing the tears falling out his sister, R.'s eyes. She then ran into her room and immediately went to her computer. The globe once again changed to a scene as a boy with brown hair with red eyes watched as his friends left him in the digital world after he had made a mistake in making his own Digimon digivolve into his corrupt mega form. He watched silently with tears running down his eyes before he threw the goggles that he once treasured onto the ground, breaking them on contact before he walked away. She once again sighed to herself before she went back to watching the blonde boy by the name of Uzumaki Naruto. With Naruto, why are they doing this? Naruto thought to himself as he stared at the cheering crowd with dead eyes. The reason why he was being executed was because he had killed the one that he had once called a brother. Uchiha Sasuke. He was sent on a mission along with Nara Shikamaru, Inuzuka Kiba, Akamichi Choji, and Hyuga Neji to go and retrieve the defecting Sasuke. They all had split up to face their own battles against the Sound 4-5 with the unexpected arrival of Kagaya Kimimaro. But with the help of Rock Lee, that little problem was easily taken care of with the help of Sabku no Gaara and his siblings. He soon met up with Sasuke at the Valley of the End where they had their final battle. They had both pushed each other to their limits before they both faced each other with their final and most powerful attacks. Flashback. Naruto was charging up a Kyuubi-powered Rasengan as Sasuke charged up a dark version of the Chidori with the power of the Cursed Seal. They glared at each other one last time before charging at one another. As their attacks met, they called out their names. Chidori, Rasengan. Both tried to overpower the other and Sasuke was succeeding as he pushed more chakra into his attack. He was determined to win and go to Orochimaru for the power he needed to kill his brother, and he wouldn't let the Dobi stand in his way. Naruto felt himself being pushed back and he focuses even more of chakra into his Rasengan. He was going to bring back Sasuke because he made a promise to Sakura-chan that he would. Even if he didn't promise her, he would have done it anyway because he saw Sasuke as a brother and he wouldn't let him go and make a mistake like he was doing right now. With that thought, he drew even more chakra from Kyuubi, effectively drawing another tail of power from the sealed demon. When he did this, he easily overpowered Sasuke, R.'s Chidori, and shoved his Rasengan into his chest, making the Uchiha fly back into the cliff. His body then falls to the ground with a barely audible thump. Naruto watched this all in shock before he felt Kyuubi's chakra leave him and rushed over to his fallen friend. As he reaches him, he sees Sasuke on the brink of death with a few tears in his eyes. He looks up at Naruto and glares a little before he drops it and smiles a weak smile. Dobi, it seems I'm going to die, Sasuke says weakly while coughing up a little blood. Shut up, you are not going to die. I made a promise to Sakura-chan that I will bring you back, and I will, Naruto said as he tried not to let his tears form. Stop lying to yourself, Dobi. It's over. For me, Sasuke wheezed as he glared a little at his now crying friend, rival. But I was all he said before Sasuke interrupted him. Damn it, Dobi. I'm dying. Get over it, he said a little strongly as he watched as his friend stare at him in shock before he continued. My only regret is that I never got to avenge my clan and kill Itachi, he said before he died with a small frown on his face. Naruto stayed there crying over the death of his brother before Kakashi arrived and carried them both back to Konoha with sorrow visible in his one eye. End flashback. Now here he was about to be executed by order of the council 3 weeks later. He smiled a bitter smile as he watched them all cheer for his death. He let his eyes wander the crowd as he spotted a familiar pink-haired girl watching it all with tears in her eyes as she watched her teammate about to be killed. She already lost one teammate that she loved dearly, now she was watching the other that she looked at like a brother about to be killed before her very eyes. The entire village found out about the Kyuubi being sealed into Naruto hours before the execution, and none of his friends cared about that. They all could tell the differences between a demon who can kill thousands and a human boy who has done nothing but tried to gain recognition by a village full of ninja by pulling pranks. She has to admit she hated Naruto for what he had done to Sasuke but couldn't really blame him because she was the one who made him promise to bring back Sasuke while she stayed and waited for him to return. She was part to blame and she knew that he didn't mean to kill him, he was just trying to fulfill a promise to her. She was shaken from her thoughts as she watched the ninja on the execution platform going through some hand seals that she knew all too well. The same seals that she watched Sasuke go through countless times. The seals for the Gokakyu no Jutsu. As the ninja finished the jutsu, the crowd felt a massive amount of killer intent being focused across the area. Soon they heard what sounded like 1,000 birds chirping, which confused the villagers but alarmed the ninja who knew what this meant. Chidori was heard throughout the area and was the last thing the ninja executing Naruto heard. Naruto watched this with wide eyes as he witnessed his sensei killing the ninja that was meant to kill him. Kakashi-sensei, why are you saving me? I don't understand? Naruto said with confusion in his voice. He thought Kakashi would hate him after he had killed Sasuke. Kakashi didn't answer, all he did was turn his head slightly so he was facing him and do his eye smile before lifting up his leaf headband revealing his Sharingan eye as he was surrounded by over 4 dozen ninja. He never got a chance to attack as they were quickly defeated by attacks that sounded familiar to both Kakashi's and Naruto's ears. Kamaitachi no Jutsu. Sabku Q, Sabku Soso, Gatsuga. Hake Rokujuyon show. Naruto watched in awe as his friends attacked the surrounding ninja. He didn't have long to watch as he felt the ropes that had him tied up being cut. He looked behind him to see his close friend Shikamaru with a giant scroll tied to his back. Come on Naruto, we have to go. While they hold them off, Shikamaru spoke with none of the laziness that he was known for. Why is everyone doing this? I don't understand. Naruto spoke quietly with his head down. Do you really have to ask such a troublesome question? Shikamaru said as he stared at his sulking friend. But I killed Sasuke, I deserve to. Was all Naruto got to say before he was punched in the face by Shikamaru, who was glaring daggers at him. Idiot, quit thinking like that. If you were to die right now, imagine how much grief that would bring everyone. I know you feel bad over killing Sasuke, but look out there and tell me what you see, Shikamaru said as he nodded his head to the area where all their friends and senseis were fighting. Naruto watched silently as he watched as all his friends fight for his survival. Why would they help someone like me? I don't understand. He questioned their motives once again but came up with a blank. He then turns towards Shikamaru, who was staring at him expectantly, so he puts up his mask of happiness. You're right Shikamaru, let's get going. Naruto, not waiting for a reply, took off for the front gates, followed closely by Shikamaru. They soon pass the gates and head off into forest, heading out of Fire Country. Along the way Naruto is in deep thought and decides to ask Shikamaru a question. Shikamaru, why is it that you're coming with me? Naruto asked, looking over to his traveling companion. I came because the others decided that I was the only one that could get you out of any trouble that you will most likely get yourself in, he said as he shook his head a little. Okay. So what's with the big scroll? Naruto asked as he pointed his finger to the scroll on Shikamaru's back. This is a storage scroll filled with clothes, food, jutsu, and other ninja gear that we need. You can thank Godem-sama and Jiraiya-sama for this scroll, Naruto. Now stop with the questions, they're getting troublesome, Shikamaru said as he jumped from another tree with Naruto trailing behind him. Bon and arrow Senin, thanks, Naruto thought as he and Shikamaru was engulfed in a bright white light. With Motomiya Jun, Davis, why did you say that? Jun thought as she stared at her computer screen with a blank look on her face. She thought back on what Davis said to her that put her in such a condition. Flashback. Jun, I'm not telling you. Davis yelled angrily at his sister. Jun wanted to know why he and his friends came out of the computer screen at his school with strange little monsters that she always see him carries around. Jun had questioned Davis about it when he had gotten home, and here they were now. And why not Daisuke? She yelled, saying his real name, which meant that she was serious. Fine, I'll tell you, and then you're going to leave me the hell alone. What you saw earlier was my friends and I coming back from our trip in the digital world. The digital world is a place where monsters called Digimon live, and I am what you call a chosen child. The little monsters you saw with us were our Digimon. And what we were doing in there was fighting the Digimon Emperor, who seems to think that enslaving Digimon is a good thing to do. So we were in there fighting him, hoping to stop his reign over the digital world, he told her all in one go. Well, how about I help you then, she said in a cheerful voice with a smile, but that soon fell with the glare Davis sent her. No way, you are not going to help, Davis shouted, making Jun jump in shock. You would probably get everyone killed with your DITZYNESS, and for one you don't have a Digimon. And even if you did, you would still be useless because all you do is flirt and try to get dates with Matt. Who doesn't even like you. No one likes being around you, so do Eveyone a favor and stay out of our way. Davis screamed before he walked out the house to meet up with his friends. He never even noticed the tears falling down his sister's face as she ran into her room and went straight to her computer. End flashback. Jun has been locked up in her room for the past hour, staring blankly at her computer screen. Then a message popped up on the screen. She read through it, thinking nothing of it. Do you want to fulfill your destiny, Motomiya Jun? The message had a yes or no answer at the bottom of the message. Sure, why not, she said with a sad smile on her face before she clicked yes and was engulfed in a bright light. With Matsuda Takato walked through the digital world with no real destination. His mind was still processing at what happened earlier. How his so-called friends had abandoned him in the digital world over a mistake that was already killing him on the inside. Flashback. Takato, you can't come back with us. You're too dangerous, Genria said to his friend who was staring at him in shock. What do you mean? Takato asked as he tried to approach his friend only to find his path blocked by Terriermon. You don't get it, do you, Takato? Terriermon said as he glared at Takato with hatred. Get what? He asked, confused by why they were treating him like this. How about I tell him? Yuri said quietly as she stared at Takato with nothing but disgust. Takato, you destroyed your own Digimon thanks to your hatred. You turned Guilmon from a nice playful Digimon to nothing but a killing machine born from your hatred, she said with tears in her eyes. Takato was about to approach her when he was attacked by Terriermon, sending him to the ground. Don't come near us, Takato, Terriermon said coldly as he turned his back on the once tamer and walked away. Genria watched silently before ushering his sister to follow him with her Lopmon in her arms. Takato turned his attention over to Ruki, who was watching silently before locking gazes with his for a brief second. She stared at him for a minute before also walking off with Renamon trailing behind her. His longtime friends didn't even cast him a gaze and also walked off. He silently took of his goggles before throwing them to the ground, breaking them on contact before walking off in the opposite direction. The last things the retreating tamers heard from Takato was a scream that shook them to the core, along with the whole digital world, who felt the power Takato was laying off as he screamed. I hate you all. He screamed as a pulse of power shook the entire digital world and scaring the tamers and everything else who heard his scream and felt his power. Naruto was the first to awaken from his slumber. He rubbed his eyes and the slobber that had formed at the corners of his mouth. He looks to his side to see Shikamaru sleeping along with two other people. First, Naruto is confused before memories from yesterday coming rushing back to him in full force. He remembers having escaped Konoha with the help of his friends, with Shikamaru accompany him. He then remembers traveling through the forest heading out of Fire Country and then a bright light. Feeling that he's not going to get any answers by himself and it would be better if he had more people to help him look around, he decided to wake up his sleeping comrades. Wake up, you three, Naruto shouted effetely, waking up all three of the sleeping people. They all turned to the source of their personal alarm clock and glared daggers at it. This made Naruto slowly back up against the wall as they glared at him before looking at each other, then back at Naruto. But one of the people that Naruto didn't know reacted in a complete different way once he got a good look at the girl. He screamed and backed up to the nearest wall, pointing his finger at the girl who was looking at him curiously. How am I seeing you right now? You're supposed to be nothing but a cartoon show, the boy said as he pointed his finger at the girl who now had a confused face. Shikamaru stared at them both before walking over to Naruto, who was so focused on watching the boy and the girl that he never noticed him walk up to him. Shikamaru then bopped Naruto over his head, making him slam into the ground with a thump. Naruto looked at Shikamaru angrily before screaming at him. What the hell was that for Shikamaru? Idiot, I was having such a nice nap. Where are we anyway? He asked as he viewed his surroundings. They seemed to be in some sort of high-tech room. There were monitors connected to their beds with their names on them. He turns to Takato, who still seems to be panicking, and decides that he wants answers and he's probably the one to get some from. Takato-san, can you please explain why you look like you've seen a ghost? Shikamaru asked as he leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Takato soon stops his panicking and turns to face Shikamaru. Okay, but first tell me how you know my name, Takato asked as he sat down and looked towards the boy who had addressed him. Shikamaru says nothing, only nodded his head at the monitors. Deciding to see why Shikamaru wanted him to see the monitor, he sees his name along with the others and stares in shock as he reads over Jun's name. So it really is you, Takato said as he placed his hand on his head and shook it a bit. Now to answer your question, the reason why I reacted the way I did when I saw Jun-san is because where I'm from, she's from a cartoon I used to watch, he explained, then stopped when Jun interrupted him. Wait, you're saying that I was from a cartoon? From where you're from? So which cartoon was it and who starred in it? She asked in a very cheerful voice because she hoped that she was the main question. The show was called Digimon Adventure 1 and 2. The stars for the first series were Yagami, Taichi, Ishida, Matt, Yamato, Takenouchi Sora, Izumi, Izzy, Kushiro, Tachikawa Mimi, Kido Joe, Takeshi, TK, Takaru, and Yagami, Kari, Hikari, he explained, earning a gasp from Jun. So you're telling me that all those people that I happen to know are from this Digimon show and have their own Digimon? She asked, and when she saw him nod his head she asked him to continue, which he did. The second series stars are Motomiya, Davis, Daisuke, Takeshi, TK, Takaru, Yagami, Kari, Hikari, Inoue, Yole, Miyako, Hida, Cody, Iroi, and Ichijoji Ken. He finished, leaving a shocked Jun to absorb what she was just told. You mean to tell me my brother is a star of a show, so what am I? She asked him, feeling really irritated that her brother is a star of a show and she isn't. You're more of a secondary character, but you only appeared a few times in the show, he said with a nervous chuckle. One more question, do I end up with Matt? She asked with hope in her eyes. No, he ends up with Sora in the end, he said, simply believing that things already happened, but when he saw her crying realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Hold on, why are you asking about whom Matt ends up dating? He asked while hoping it already had and also hoping that Jun had a really bad memory. Deciding that he had enough of this, Shikamaru decides to answer for the crying girl. It's obvious that the event that you just told hasn't happened yet. How about instead, if staying in this room, we explore this place to find out who's in charge, Shikamaru said as he slowly walked out the room with Naruto following closely behind him. Takato and Jun turned to one another before following them also. What they didn't notice was that a figure was watching them from the shadows of the room. She smiled as she watched them go. She then headed into the next room where she would meet them. With Shikamaru and company, Shikamaru led them to the next room where they saw 4 eggs inside a glass case. They all approached the case and were about to open it when a voice stopped them. Hello there, a female voice said, which startled the 4 teens. They turned around to see a Digimon staring at them with a curious gaze. She had an air of complete power surrounding her that even Kyuubi felt in his cage. Gathering up his courage, Naruto decided to speak first. Who are you and what are you? Naruto asked in all seriousness, putting Shikamaru on alarm because he knew Naruto would never act serious even in a serious situation. Probably still blaming himself for Sasuke's death, he thought silently to himself. My name is Ancient Kazemon and I am what you call a Digimon, she spoke softly, but it held a tone that demanded respect. So what does a Digimon wants with us? Shikamaru spoke with a lazy tone, but the look in his eyes held interest. I summon you 4 here because I need you to save the digital world along with the others, she informed them, making them look at her in disbelief. Wait, why would you need us? Can't the chosen children from Jun's world and the tamers from mine save the digital world? Takato said as he spat out the word, tamers, with hate. No, only you 4 can do it, she said as she walked over to the glass case. I don't see what's so special about us, Shikamaru said as he leaned against the wall. Naruto and I have no connection to Digimon like these 2 seem to have. So why are we here? He finished as Naruto nodded his head along with him. They're right, and I only just found about Digimon from my brother, Jun added in finally joining the conversation. And I can't possibly help because my Digimon was deleted a while ago, Takato said with sorrow in his voice. They continued to all talk at once until Ancient Kazemon had finally had enough and silenced them with a small taste of her power. Silence, she shouted, making strong winds pick up in the room, knocking them all off their feet. After she calmed herself down, she waited until the children picked themselves up before she continued. There will be no more interruptions. Hold all your question until I am finishing explaining. Do I make myself clear? She spoke softly but held a serious glare at the 4 children, who slowly nodded their heads. The 4 of you are what we ancients call the true chosen. The true chosen have 2 duties, and they are to protect the different digital worlds and their corresponding human worlds. Each of you represents a certain trait that makes you who you are. Naruto, you represent the trait of spirit because of your drive to never give up on anything or anyone. You also never let anything keep you down for long and always try to see the good in people. Shikamaru, you represent the trait of wisdom for your ability to analyze anything and everything without making a foolish move. You have wisdom way beyond your years, but you hide it under a facade of laziness which let your enemies know that you're not a threat, but in truth you're the biggest threat of all. Compassion is the trait that you represent the most, Jun. Even though you try to deny it, you care deeply for those around you, especially your brother Daisuke. You have a big heart, Jun, remember that. Takato, you are a little different, she spoke as her warm but piercing eyes stared into Takato's nervous and confused eyes. What do you mean different? Takato questioned as he felt dread building inside of him. Takato, you represent chaos, was all she said as she walked to where the Digitama were. Takato didn't understand what she meant by chaos, so he decided to ask her again. What's so different about chaos? He asked irritably. Ancient Kazimon turned back to him for a brief moment and spoke to him without facing him. Takato, that is something that I will explain in time, she said softly as she opens the glass case containing the digitama. Takato was about to question her again, but he felt a hand on his shoulder. Startled, he looked behind him to see Shikamaru shaking his head. Takato sees this and nods his head slightly. He, including the others, will have to wait until she's ready to give information on Takato and the chaos that he represents. Completely unaware of the little exchange between the two, ancient Kazimon returns with a black digitama with sun-like spots on it in one hand and the device and crest in the other. She walks up to Naruto and hands him the digitama and the two items. Naruto stares at her with a confused expression on his face, with his head tilted slightly to the side. What are these? He asked her while he stared at the digitama in amazement. These, child, are your digitama, crest and digivice I see. Inside the digitama is your partner Digimon that will help you fight other Digimon. Now Digimon are not just used for fighting, they can become your best of friends as well. Your partner Digimon is directly connected to your souls, and this helps them feel your emotions, making them evolve into higher forms. That is where the crest come in. Naruto, the crest that you have is the crest of spirit. The crest of spirit is one of the 4 ancient crests from ancient times. I will not go into that story at this time, but I will tell you all in due time. And the device that you have with you is your digivice I see. This also helps your Digimon partner evolve into its higher forms. Take very good care of your partner because she's a very special one and will become your best friend in time, she told Naruto, who nodded his head dumbly without saying a word and just stared at the things in his hands. She then went back to the case and grabbed the blue egg with white spots on it with the items connected to it and handed them to Shikamaru. She was about to start explaining things to Shikamaru, but he interrupted her and spoke himself in his normal bored tone. No need to explain, I heard everything you said to Naruto. And if I had to make a guess, I say this crest is the crest of wisdom, he said to her in a statement. Seeing her nod her head, he continued. And this digitama that you call it has my Digimon partner in it, and this digivice I see that I have will help it evolve. Okay. Wake me up when she explains why we're here, he said as he placed his crest around his neck and then clipped his digivice to his pants and placed his digitama next to him as he lied against the wall and fell asleep instantly. The group sweat drop at this and turned back to ancient Kazimon, who appeared with a red digitama with a white dragon circling around it with the same 2 items that the others had. Jun, these are for you. The crest is the crest of passion, and I will say the same to you that I had said to Naruto. Take care of your partner and treat him well like you would do anyone else, she spoke softly as Jun stared at the digitama in her hand and then looked at the orange and white device in her hand. She smiled and clipped her digivice to her pants like Shikamaru had done before her and placed her crest around her neck. Ancient Kazimon soon came back with a black egg with red hazard signs on it with a red and white digivice with a crest in her other hand. She then handed them to Takato, who had a bewildered look on his face. I can't have this digitama. I already have a Digimon, well, had one, he spoke softly at the end, trying to hold back his tears as he thought about Guilman. Ancient Kazimon only smiled at him, and Takato caught this look and glared at her while unconsciously letting loose a pulse of power that shook the area. Why are you smiling like that? Takato yelled, but soon quieted down as he saw what he was doing as he looked at the others around him. Naruto was leaning against the wall with his digitama clutched close to his chest. Shikamaru, who had woken up after hour, felt the power surge coming from Takato, had quickly grabbed his digitama and focused chakra to his feet to keep him from ending up like Naruto and Jun. Said person was lied out on the ground unconscious, clutching her digitama close to her chest. Ancient Kazimon hasn't moved an inch and still had the items in her hand while glaring slightly at Takato. Control your emotions, child. This is one of the reasons you hold the crest of chaos. And the digitama is your partner Digimon Guilman. I gathered his data from when he destroyed himself after he had become Megidramon, she explained, and stopped when she heard Takato gasp in shock. How do you know about that? He asked in a whisper. I know everything about what has happened, child. Guilman is right in this digitama. But I shall warn you, he will be a little different from before, she said to him, but when she saw his confused look she continued. He will be a lot more feral when it comes to battle, since he was in his corrupted mega form when he destroyed himself. But do not worry yourself, he will still be the same Digimon that you know and love, she explained to him, hoping to ease his nerves. She silently made a sigh of relief when she saw him visibly relax and took his digitama, then began to walk away, but then suddenly stopped in his tracks. Please explain why you said that was the reason why I hold the crest of chaos. He said as he fully faced her. She said, nodding to him, but turned to Naruto, who had woken up Jun, with a big slap to her face. Damn it, what the hell was that for? She yelled as she began strangling Naruto, who was quickly turning blue. Deciding that he should end this, Shikamaru goes through a few hand seals and performs his trademark jutsu stopping. Kagemane no jutsu success, he said as he slowly moved his arms, making Jun mimic his movements, making her drop Naruto in the process. Shikamaru slowly turns to face Jun, who copies his movements exactly and sees Shikamaru smirking slightly at her. "Why the hell can't I move?" she yelled, trying to move her body but couldn't budge an inch. "You can thank my Kajimane for that. You see, with the Kajimane no jutsu I can directly connect my shadow to yours, making you do everything I do, for example," he explained as he placed his hands on the top of his head in a strange fashion, making Jun mimic his actions. Jun is stunned with this and does the most logical thing that seems appropriate at the moment. "Can I learn how to do that, Shikamaru-san?" she said with a bow after being released by his jutsu. Shikamaru gives her a bored look before answering. "Sorry, family secret, and you would have to know how to use chakra to even perform jutsu," he explained, making Jun slump her shoulders because she really wanted to be able to do what he had just done. "That was awesome. Do you think we can learn how to use chakra and do these jutsu you spoke of?" Takato asked after finally finding voice after what he had just witnessed. Ancient Kazemon, seeing this, smiled to herself and also entered the conversation before Shikamaru could decline again. "Shikamaru, I believe if these two learn about how to utilize chakra, it could help out in your upcoming battles," she spoke in a tone that left no room for arguments. Sighing to himself, he turns to Naruto, who seems to be in deep thought before he spoke. "Kazemon, can you at least tell us who we're fighting? And why these other chosen children cannot?" Naruto asked in a very serious tone, making Shikamaru stare at him in shock, but soon agreed with him and turned to the Digimon, whom seemed to be glaring at Naruto. "Call me Ancient Kazemon. Kazemon is one of my lower forms, but never mind that. I will tell you why and who you four will be fighting, but for now follow me," she spoke as she walked out of the room with the four children following closely behind her. She led them to a large corridor where they saw 5 large mirrors placed a few inches apart from one another. Ancient Kazemon turned around to face the children, who were looking at her waiting for an explanation. "The 7 demon lords are whom you will be fighting for the survival of the digital worlds and corresponding human worlds. These 7 were recruited by ancient Wisemen to conquer every digital world. Ancient Volcamon, Ancient Mermaimon, and Ancient Troyamon betrayed us, only leaving Ancient Beetlemon, Ancient Garurumon, Ancient Greymon, Ancient Megatheriumon, Ancient Sphinxmon, and myself left to fight them. We battle for centuries before causalities soon happen on both sides. They had lost Lilithmon, who had mysteriously disappeared after I had defeated her. All the ancient Digimon on Ancient Wiseman's side soon fell in battle, except Ancient Mermaimon and Ancient Wiseman himself. He soon went into hiding along with the remaining 7 demon lords. I have no idea why, but her did, because he could have easily defeated me since I was the only one left alive on my side. The others had fell in battle and will take many centuries to return back to normal. Ancient Digimon is highly different from other types of Digimon from when they become Digitama. Like the Sovereign Digimon, when we become Digitama we don't simply evolve back into our lowest forms. You see, when we become Digitama it takes centuries for us to return to our highest form in power. The form you see now is my highest, and the other ancient Digimon should return in about the next 500 human years, she explained as she went next to one of the large mirrors. The others stared at her as if she had grown another head. "So you're telling us that this ancient Wiseman and the remaining Demon Lord Digimon are returning, right?" Shikamaru asked after he recomposed himself. When he saw her nod he continued. "And you want us to defeat them?" he asked, and when he saw her nod her head again he continued. "So how are we supposed to fight someone that not even you or these other ancient Digimon could defeat?" he asked her while he stared at her with a skeptical eye. The others nodded their heads, agreeing with him. "Also, what's so different from us and the other chosen children?" Jun asked as she lightly rubbed her Digitama. "The other chosen do not have the power that you 4 posses and would die if they tried to fight any one of them," she spoke before she motions them over to the mirror she was looking through. "To prepare you 4 for the upcoming battles I am going to send you on a training trip through one of the digital worlds. This training trip will take 1 year. You have 1 year to gain stronger and become friends with your partner Digimon." She paused when she was interrupted by Jun, who stopped her from speaking again. "I can't leave home for a year, I still have to finish school and get an eligible boyfriend," she spoke frantically while moving her arms wildly, earning a sweat drop from everyone around. "Jun, do not worry, time in the digital world you're going to go slower than it does in your human world," she spoke calmly. "How long exactly are we talking?" Jun asked with a raised eyebrow. "Exactly 2 months, she said simply while walking away silently. "What do you mean 2 months? I can't do 2 months of homework," she yelled back at her, making the other 3 cringe at the volume of her voice. "She's very loud," Takato said as he rubbed his ears. "Yeah, she's almost as loud as Naruto," Shikamaru said with a smirk on his face. "Yeah, she's almost as loud as me," Naruto said, agreeing with Shikamaru before he realized what he had just said, before turning angrily towards Shikamaru, who was trying his hardest not to laugh. "I am not loud, Shikamaru, you lazy bum," Naruto shouted at the lazy boy at higher volume than Jun can even hope to reach. "Wow, Jun doesn't even come close to how loud Naruto's voice is," Takato spoke as he tried to get his hearing back. Shikamaru said nothing but only nodded his head. Jun was looking at Naruto with an unreadable look on her face as she waited for the Digimon to return. 10 minutes later, ancient Kazemon returned with a giant scroll in her hand that Naruto and Shikamaru instantly recognized. "Oh, I was wondering where that go to," Shikamaru mumbled to himself. "I'd totally forgotten about that scroll," Naruto said as he scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. "Here, you will need this if you're going to train them on how to use chakra," she said as she walked back over to the mirror where an angry Jun awaited. "Kazemon, I can't miss 2 months of school. Just imagine how much homework I will have to do, and my family would be worried about me as well," she said as she crossed her arms and waited for ancient Kazemon to answer. "Once again, it's ancient Kazemon said as she sent a small glare at the girl. "Tell me, Jun, what weighs more? Missing 2 months of school or the end of the world with everybody you know and love?" ancient Kazemon said as she stared at the girl who was staring back at her with wide eyes. "Sorry, I guess I was too caught up in myself and didn't even think of all the lives that would be lost if I acted on my foolish idea for selfish reasons," she spoke softly to the now smiling Digimon. Said Digimon placed a comforting hand on Jun and nodded to girl in approval at her choice of words. Unknown to everyone but ancient Kazemon, Jun's crest began to glow slightly from under her clothes. Ancient Kazemon smiled an even bigger smile when she saw this, even though she knew that they couldn't see it. "Children, now come here so I can set you off to the world you will be going to," she said as she waited for the other 3 to come to her. When they all gathered, she explained to them where they would be going. "Children, you 4 will be going to a digital world where nothing but wild champion-level Digimon and higher Digimon roam. While you 4 are there, I want you to train with your Digimon and yourselves. Shikamaru and Naruto will show you how to use chakra and utilize it to the best of their ability. Now walk through this dimension mirror and you will arrive at your destination. Take care, children, and I will see you in 1 year," she spoke softly to them. Naruto gave her a foxy grin. Shikamaru nodded his head slightly, Takato also nodded his head, and Jun gave a big smile. They then walked through the mirror, leaving ancient Kazemon by herself. She let loose a sigh before she was engulfed in a bright light. When the light faded, it revealed a woman in the place of ancient Kazemon. The woman looked about to be in her mid-20s. She had long blonde hair that reached her back with aqua blue eyes. She was dressed as a purple sweater with black pants that were tight around the thighs and became loose as it went down to her ankles. She wore a pair of black heels on. She took out a cigarette that was in her back pocket and lit it up. She then put it in her mouth and took a long drag out of it before letting loose a long stream of smoke from her mouth. She smiled slightly before walking up to one of the dimension mirrors where it shows a middle school. She steps through the mirror and appears in the front of the middle school with no one around. She walked slowly up to the school and through its doors and through the halls before arriving at a class that read, 8A. She walks through the doors up to the front of the classroom. She faces the children whom seem to be staring at her in confusion. She smiles a soft smile at the children, making the boys blush slightly, especially a goggle-wearing boy with brownish red hair that had a little drool coming out of his mouth. The girl next to him frowns slightly as she sees this. She had brown hair with a digital camera around her neck. "Hello class, my name is Orimoto Izumi and I will be your new teacher." 3 figures were walking to a middle school. One figure was identified as a male with spiky blonde hair that slightly defied gravity and fell down past his shoulders slightly, with bright blue eyes. He had 6 whisker marks on his face with 3 on each side of his cheek. He wore a dark orange shirt with a black swirl on the back. Over it he wore a black jacket with a dark orange swirl on the shoulders of the jacket. On the back of his jacket in dark blue was the symbol of his crest that represents spirit. Around his neck on a black cloth was his Hite-8 that was no longer on his forehead. He had on slightly baggy black pants with his black and gray digivice strapped to them. The boy was identified as former shinobi of Konoha, Uzumaki Naruto, and he was currently looking at the school building with a look of disgust plastered on his face. Next to him was another male who had brown hair done up in a spiky ponytail that resembled a pineapple slightly. He had dull black eyes and his face was set into a frown. He wore an ordinary black shirt with a green jacket over it. Like Naruto, he still carried his Hite-8, but he had it tied around his right bicep. He had on khaki pants that were a little baggy with his blue and black digivice hooked through one of his front belt loops. He wore black shoes like Naruto, but he had a bit of green on them. The boy was identified as former shinobi of Konoha, Nara Shikamaru. The last figure was male and he was staring at the building with a nervous sweat running down his face. He had messy brown hair with brownish-red eyes. He wore a black hoodie over a dark red shirt. On the back of his hoodie was a dark red digital hazard sign. He wore black pants with digital hazard symbol in dark red on the side of his right leg with black shoes on. He slightly pulled out his red and black digivice to see his Digimon sleeping soundly in it. The boy was identified as former leader of the Tamers, Matsuda Takato. He chucked softly before turning back to their current situation. "How the hell did we get into this shit again?" Naruto asked as he looked at his two friends for answers. "Naruto, could you cut back on the language? Sometimes I wonder who has it worst, us or your partner," Shikamaru said with a yawn.
"Shut it, lazy ass," Naruto said as he continued to stare at the school with contempt.
"Come on Naruto, it can't be that bad," Takato said with a nervous chuckle. "Yes, it is. I can't stand school. It's always been so boring, especially when they won't be talking about any ninja stuff," Naruto said with a frown. "It doesn't matter. We have a mission to do and I would like to complete it with no problems," Shikamaru said as he begins walking towards the school. Takato and a reluctant Naruto follow at a much slower pace than the other two. "I wonder if Jun is handling it better than I am," Naruto thought as he stared at the sky blankly. With Motomiya, Jun was running towards her school in excitement. She couldn't believe that she was finally back. After spending 1 year in the hellhole known as the digital world of the dark dimension, she learned how to survive with the shinobi skills Naruto and Shikamaru taught her and Takato. She could now walk on walls and water. She learned a few jutsu from Naruto and Shikamaru. She even made some of her own jutsu and they found out that she had a wood affinity like that of the Shodai Hokage. She hasn't completely mastered the element yet and she knows that she probably had a few more years until she does. It was surprising because her partner Digimon happens to be a vegetation Digimon. She laughed to herself as she focused chakra into her legs before jumping over from one rooftop to the next. She spotted her high school from the building she was standing on. She looked down at her school uniform, which consists of a green sailor fuku with a blue ribbon on her green blouse. She smiled as she looked at the black and pink bag on her shoulders. She thought ahead and brought a change of clothes to change into once school was over. Connected to the zipper of her bag was her pink and black digivice. Her crest was tucked away safely in her bag so she wouldn't worry about losing it or drawing attention to herself by wearing it. She grabbed her digivice and stared at the flower-like Digimon, who was staring back at her. "Lalamon, today is the day of my reintroduction to high school," she said with a big smile on her face. "Yes, it is, Jun. But you also have a mission to complete," she said as if she was talking to a child. "Yeah, I know. I have to protect the original Chosen since I go to high school with most of them, while Naruto and the others guard the new Chosen," she said with a pout. "Yes, but you're forgetting the last part of the mission," Lalamon said with a smile. "No, I'm not. Each of us has to send a challenge to a Chosen of our choice and test their current strength. Why she wants us to do that I don't know," Jun said with a huff.
"It doesn't matter, Jun. We have to do the mission." "Oh, I think I just heard the bell for your school ring," Lalamon said, making Jun turn to the direction of her school.
"Damn it. Sorry Lalamon, I'll have to talk to you later," Jun said as she strapped her digivice back to her bag and jumped down from the building she was on and into an alleyway. "Damn it. First day back and I'm already late," Jun cursed as she ran towards her school in a hurry. Without realizing it, she jumped over the school gates just as they were closing. The people who saw this were wide-eyed, but Jun was oblivious to all of this and ran into the school building. She ran all the way until she reached her classroom door. She straightens out her skirt and put a smirk on her face. "Operation Introduction and Reintroduction begins now," she said with her smirk widening. She knocks on the door and is told to come in. As she enters, she wonders how the children are progressing. "With Izumi, class, we have 3 new students who are joining us today. So I expect for you all to behave yourselves. That Monsu Motomiya," said boy just gave his sensei a sheepish smile. Izumi sighed for 6th time that day. She couldn't understand why the boys were so late. Sure, it's only been 10 minutes since the bell rang, but they had left her base over 2 hours ago. She gave them their mission and told them where they would be staying. She even gave them money to buy clothes. Sure, they asked questions on how she got the money and how she was able to enroll them in school. She just told them that she had many tricks up her sleeves. They didn't need to know that she could take her human form or any other of her lower forms at any given time, well, at least not yet. Izumi knew that she would have to tell them eventually, but right now she would just let them keep guessing. She remembered when she first told them that they would be going to school. She felt a smirk making its way on her face, as she thought about it. Flashback: Ancient Kazemon waited patiently for her charges to make back through the dimension mirror. 2 months had passed and she was eager to see how far the four children had progressed, along with their partner Digimon. The Digimon didn't have long to wait because at that very second four forms came crashing out of the mirror. She raised a non-existent eyebrow at them and studies them. They all gained muscles and it showed too. They didn't look overly ripped or like those weightlifters who appear on those competition. No, they looked, in a word, lean. Jun's hair had grown out a lot more and was complaining about getting a haircut. She was dressed in blue shinobi pants that had some tears in them. A black shirt with a green chunin vest on, which also had some burn marks on them. She had on black shinobi sandals and black fingerless gloves with a metal plate on each glove. Around her neck was her crest that was hanging in her tag. Takato hair had also grown out. It now rested on his shoulders and was a little wild now. His brownish-red eyes were a lot less dull than they once were and contained a lot more of its former light. He wore a crimson shirt with a black jacket on. He wore black shinobi pants with black shinobi sandals on. He also had rips and tears all over his outfit. Strapped to his right leg was kunai holster and strapped to his pants was his red and black digivice. Around his neck was his tag and crest. He was currently trying to pick himself up from the ground and grumbling something about cheating blondes. That was something that irked ancient Kazimon a bit. Naruto was laughing at the muttering Takato. His hair was resting on his shoulders and it became even more untamed than before.
His blue eyes were full of life, but were extremely guarded.
He wore black shinobi pants with his hite wrapped around his waist like a belt. He also wore a black shirt under an orange and black jacket, and he had on black shinobi sandals. His outfit wasn't as damaged as the other two, but it had its tears. His kunai holster was strapped to his right leg and his black and gray digivice was strapped to his waist. His crest and tag was hanging around his neck along with the necklace Tsunade gave him. Shikamaru was just ignoring them with an impassive look on his face. His hair looked the same and ancient Kazimon figured that he must have cut his hair somewhere in the digital world.
He wore a black sweater under a green chunin vest with black shinobi pants on with matching shinobi sandals. His outfit was pretty much in the same condition as Naruto's, but he had more tears in his. His blue and black digivice was strapped to his waist like the others. Strapped to his back was a large scroll and tied to his left bicep was hite. Around his neck was his tag and crest. "It's good to see you four made it back alive," ancient Kazimon said in complete seriousness. The glares they were sending here made her laugh and smirk inwardly. "Sorry young ones, I know it may have been rough on the four of you. Explain to me how your training went," she asked, gesturing them to take a seat on the floor. They complied easily, having gotten used to the ground over their time in the digital world. Naruto, Takato, and Jun immediately turned to look at Shikamaru. Said person groaned slightly before speaking.
"Well, to put it simply, the digital world was hell. Not even 10 minutes had passed and we were attacked by an ultimate level Digimon by the name of Gigadramon. And since none of our partners had hatched from their Digitamas yet, we had to run. Naruto tried fighting it with an army of cage bunchins, but the Digimon easily wiped them out. Then he tried hitting it with a Rasengan, but that too failed. He was going to draw on some of the Kyuubi's chakra, but I knocked him out before he had a chance. I knew that these two probably wouldn't be able to handle the pressure of Kyuubi's malicious chakra. So we ran as away from the Digimon. It took hours to lose it and we were all dead tired." After another hour of walking, Naruto finally awakened from his peaceful slumber.
Once he did, he created another large amount of cage bunshin to scout the area where there would be a water source and a place for us to live while we stayed there, on my orders, since he was trying to berate me for knocking him out.
After our argument, one of Naruto's clones accidentally dispels himself and the memory went back to Naruto. When this happened, he found out how to really use the cage bunshin to their full potential. Soon all the bunshin returns and they were about to speak when Naruto dispelled them all at once, knocking him out in the process. So with a quick kick to the head he wakes back up and tell them to follow him. After 20 minutes of walking we came to a large open area where there was a pond and a large enough tree for us to build a house to stay in. Once we settled down, we started training. Here Shikamaru pauses and mumbles, "Troublesome Digimon," and continues his report.
The first thing we did was teach both Takato and Jun how to summon and utilize their chakra. That took about a week for them to learn. Then we taught them how to walk on trees the second week, and during the third how to walk on water.
We all spent the fourth week either walking on water or climbing trees to build up our chakra reserves and to get better control. The fifth week I unsealed the contents that were in the scroll Jiraiya-sama and Godem-sama gave to us before we fled Konoha.
In them we found over dozens of jutsu scrolls, chakra control exercises, different types of weights, shinobi clothes, and some other shinobi-related gear, including some not shinobi-related gear, he said with a slight blush on his cheeks.
Ancient Kazemon turned to look at the others to see that they all had blushes too and that both Naruto and Jun seemed to look angry. She heard Naruto saying, "Damn Ero Sennin, even in a dangerous situation her still has time to be a pervert," and Jun was saying about hating perverts. She shook her head and waited for Shikamaru to continue. "We soon started training with weights at the beginning of our first month there. We adjusted well, but it took us a while to get used to the weights. Opening up one of the taijutsu scrolls, we each found a style that worked for us to train in. For Jun, she picked the Neko Ken, which focus on flexibility and kicks.
Takato he chose the Ryu Ken, which focuses on lighting fast moves and balances well on both upper and lower body strength.
I chose the Cage Ken, which helps me to use my shadows into a more physical manner than just binding or choking them." Then Naruto, the one who wanted something like Jun's, got the Red Leg style. It focused solely on the legs, but needs great upper body strength to pull off some of the techniques of the style. The style also requires the user to have insane amount of strength in his lower body, or if the user had perfect chakra control they would have to use Godem Sama's insane strength techniques. The four of us focused on our taijutsu training for 4 months. Ancient Kazemon soon holds up her hand to stop him from going any further. "That's good that you all trained hard, but what about your Digimon?" she asked, slightly confused. Shikamaru sighed to himself before fixing the Digimon with a slight glare. "I was going to explain about them after I finished reporting about our training," he said, slightly frustrated. Naruto stared at him for a second before turning to Jun and Takato and whispered silently to them. "It seems like Shikamaru is still angry," Naruto said quietly. "Well, you did trip him on the way here," Jun whispered back, not noticing the twitch in Shikamaru's eye.
"I would be mad too if the same thing happened to me," Takato said with a shrug.
"Still, that was over an hour ago," Naruto protested. "It seems like he can hold a grudge," Jun whispered back. Before they could talk any further they felt some killing intent on them. They turned to look at Shikamaru, who was glaring at the three of them. "You know what, if you keep it up I'm going to forget you three aren't worth my time," he says as he turns to face Ancient Kazemon again. If Shikamaru could see the Digimon's face clearly he could have swore that he saw her smiling. He shrugged it off and waited for her to address him again. "Okay, you can give me the full report on your training later. Now tell me how the training with your partners went and how high of a level could you get them?" Shikamaru looks towards Jun and she speaks next after saying something about lazy bastards. "Our partners hatched out of their Digitamas into the 3rd week of our training. It took about 2 weeks for them to evolve into their rookie levels. Once they reached it we went searching around the area. Sure, we still had attacks by Digimon every once in a while back at our campsite, but we never really ventured around the place. But that's beside the point. The first one to reach champion was Naruto's partner, and for some reason unknown to us she remained like that. Then they both started training together. Naruto then trained his partner in her dodging and reflexes by throwing kunai and shuriken at her while she dodged. And since she was a champion-level Digimon he had to make some Kage Bunshin to increase the difficulty for her. We copied his exercise with our own Digimon and went out on more trips around the digital world. After another 2 weeks all our partners could reach the champion level and could go head-to-head with other champions easily. To increase the strength of our Digimon we put gravity seals on them in us, so they could become stronger than your average Digimon. To put it simply, our rookies could handle a champion-level Digimon with no problem," she finishes with a smile. Ancient Kazemon nods her head at them. "That's good, but you still haven't told me how high a level your Digimon could reach," Ancient Kazemon said with a small smile on her face. This time Takato speaks up. "They could all reach Mega," he said with a prideful smile on his face. But that soon dies with Ancient Kazemon's next words. "Only Mega," she says, a little disappointed. "What do you mean only Mega?" "Mega is the highest there is," Takato said with a frown on his face. Naruto, Shikamaru and Jun soon mimic his frown. "You're wrong. Digimon are not just limited to the level of Mega. You should know this, Takato, from what you saw from the Digimon TV show. There are all sorts of different kinds of evolution for Digimon and you have only scratched the surface. You still have a long way to go before you're ready to fight the Demon Lords and their master. But for now this will have to do," she said as she walked up to the dimension mirrors and turned to face them once more. "I will be sending you all to Jun's reality and you will have a mission to complete. Naruto, Shikamaru and Takato will be going to a middle school where the chosen children of hope, light, and miracles go to. Kindness goes to a school across town, but he is usually with the other chosen. Your mission is to watch over them and make sure no harm comes to them. The same could be said about their friends, so protect them. Jun, you will have to guard the chosen children of courage, friendship, reliability, knowledge, love, and sincerity," she explains while staring at them intently before Takato asked a question. "How is Jun supposed to guard Mimi if she's in America?" Takato asked, using his knowledge from the TV show. That's simple. Mimi moved back to Japan a few weeks ago and is going to the same high school as the Child of Courage and the other chosen children, she says calmly. Alright, I'll guard them, but what's the reason for doing this? Jun asked, tilting her head slightly. The demon lords may attack them because they could still prove a threat to Ancient Wiseman's plans. I may have to send you to Takado's realm as well because they may also get attacked, she said, not losing her calm facade. Speaking of my realm, how's the situation there? Takado asked, speaking up once again. I thought you didn't care what happened to your old friends, Takado, Ancient Kazemon said calmly, but on the inside she was smirking. I don't, it's just that my parents are still there. He paused for a second before continuing, and even if I don't like them anymore, I would never wish death on them, he finished with a small frown on his face. Very well, Takado. The situation in your home realm, Takado, is dire. A being known as the D-Reaper has been attacking both the digital world and the human world. The Tamers are having difficulties fighting and they have yet been able to reach their mega forms. They are in a losing battle and I have to say that they only have about a month before both of their worlds are destroyed, she said with a sad sigh. Takado lowers his head and his friends give him sympathetic looks. We have to help them, Takado said, lifting his head, showing the determination burning in his eyes. Naruto grins and slaps Takado on his back. You know we're with you all the way, Takado, Naruto said with a foxy smile. Shikamaru gives him a nod and Jun smile a big smile. Do not worry, young ones. The four of you will go there in a week's time, after you spend at least 1 week in school and battle with a chosen child of your choice, she says as she walks away, not wanting to be close to hear an explosion that she knew was to come. What? Naruto screamed as he ran after Ancient Kazemon. You got to be joking, Kazemon. He screams, trying to get her attention, but she wasn't answering him. Damn it, Kazemon, this isn't funny. Answer me, damn it. Naruto continued to scream as he chased down Ancient Kazemon.
End flashback. Yes, Izumi enjoyed ignoring Naruto. It made putting up with his whining worth it.
She was soon brought from her thoughts by some knocks at the door. She walks up to it and opens it. She then sees the boy of her thoughts currently sulking silently, before his face brightens up instantly. She wonders how he did that, but remembered from one of her books she read on human emotions. It read that some people, to keep themselves from being caused emotional pain, puts up things known as emotional masks to mask their emotions with fake ones. So he must be wearing one of those masks then, she thought silently to herself. She asks them to follow her into the classroom and to introduce themselves to the class. Nara-san, please introduce yourself to the class. Tell them things like your likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams for the future, those kinds of thing, okay, she said with a slight smile on her face and hid a smirk when she saw the look on Naruto's face. He has no idea how long I've actually been watching over him, she thought inwardly, laughing to herself. That sounded just like Kakashi-sensei when I first became a genin. Scary, Naruto thought as he felt himself shudder, before he had a devious idea hit him. Alright, my name is Nara Shikamaru. I like hanging out with my friends and being lazy. I dislike those who make me do any kind of work. My hobbies are watching clouds in my spare time, and playing shogi and go. My dreams are to grow old, have a family with 2 or 3 kids and die before them. He finished with a yawn, causing everyone in class, including Naruto, Takado and Izumi, to sweat drop. Takado then walks up and begins his introduction. Hi, my name is Matsuda Takado. I like drawing, hanging with my friends, and baking. I dislike those who abandon their friends over a mistake, he said the last part with a lot of anger before he calmed down a bit. My hobbies include baking and drawing. My dream is to be a successful artist, he finished with a small smile. Shaking his head, Naruto steps up next. He pulls out an orange book from his coat pocket, one that Takado and Shikamaru recognizes. Then in unison they slap their heads in embarrassment and disbelief. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I have many likes and dislikes. Hobbies, I have lots of those. Dreams for the future, haven't really thought about it, he said in a bored tone, while never taking his eyes off the book.
He then let out a small, but loud enough perverted giggle. This caused realization to flood through the classroom at what type of book he was reading. Before anyone could say anything, they suddenly found Naruto face first in the ground with 3 lumps on his heads. They looked up to see Shikamaru, Takado and Izumi each holding their fist just where Naruto's head used to be. Never read that book in my class again, Uzumaki, Izumi said with her face completely red in anger. Troublesome blonde and his pranks, Shikamaru said while giving a small kick to Naruto's head. What made him think that was a good idea? Takado said as he stared at the mess that was Naruto. I don't know, but as she was here he would have gotten a worse beating, Shikamaru mumbled, shaking his head while lifting Naruto to his feet. Yeah, she would have kicked my ass, but you guys didn't have to hit me that hard. I was just trying to reenact what Kakashi-sensei did when I first met him, Naruto whined as he rubbed his bumps.
Idiot, and why would you do that? Shikamaru said as he stared at his friend lazily. Well, how Izumi-sensei told us to introduce ourselves. It reminded me of the time I first met Kakashi, Naruto said with a pout, which made most of the girls in class to forget the perverted thing he just did and adored his pouting look. Troublesome, Shikamaru said as he turned his head to stare at Izumi, who calmed down slightly. Sensei, where's our seats located at? Shikamaru said, yawning.
There are 3 open desks at the back, go take a seat, Izumi said, wishing she was smoking a cigarette at this very moment. They each nodded their heads and took a seat in the back row.
From back here we could see everything and keep an eye on those 3, Shikamaru said, nodding his head over at Davis, TK, and Carrie. So we have the perfect watch spot in class, Takato said, taking out a notepad from his pocket and a pencil and began drawing a sketch of Carrie. So who are you guys going to fight against? My partner and I call dibs on miracles and kindness, Naruto said quietly, trying not to draw attention to him and the other 2. Are you sure? Both of them are unbelievably strong together, Takato said with a raised eyebrow. He had told them earlier about the DNA evolution most of the new generation chosen could do. For reasons unknown to Takato, both Naruto and his partner smiled at that. Of course I like a good challenge, and so does she, he said, nodding to himself.
Alright, but don't get yourself deleted, Takato said as he continued to sketch Carrie sitting in her seat. As for me, I guess I'll take on Courage, since he is my idol after all, Takato said with a smile on his face.
I don't know why we have to do this, but I'll guess I'll send a challenge to Love and Reliability, Shikamaru said with a frown before falling asleep. Did Jun ever say who she would be challenging? Takato asked Naruto. Over their time in the digital world, both Naruto and Jun had grown close into almost a brother and sister relationship. She said something about challenging friendship and sincerity, Naruto said with a shrug before pulling out another, Icha book. As soon as he opened the book, he was hit in the head by an eraser. What did I tell you about that book in my class, Uzumaki? Izumi said in a cold voice that sent a shiver down everyone's spine in class. Did you say something? Naruto said lazily, taking his eyes off his book. He saw Izumi eyebrow twitching slightly. Now I know why Kakashi-sensei did this so much, Naruto thought with a small chuckle. You know you're dead once the redhead finds out what you did, Yuba growled from his cage. She'll never find out, that's what you think. Naruto was about to ask what he meant when he found himself staring at his sensei's glaring green eyes. Oh, Naruto said with a nervous laugh while rubbing the back of his head. Oh, is right, Uzumaki. First day at school and you're already causing trouble. This is your last warning or you'll get detention, she said as she walked back to the front of class. This isn't good. Well, hopefully Jun is handling everything better than I am, Naruto said quietly while putting his head on his desk to get some rest like Shikamaru. With Jun was now sitting on the roof of her school eating lunch with Lalamon. She had cut it close earlier when she ran into the school building minutes after the bell had rang.
When she ran into the class, had been surprised to see her. They immediately started throwing questions at her from left to right. She was starting to feel overwhelmed by all of the questions until she was saved by the most unlikely of people. Yagami Taichi came to her rescue by telling everyone to sit down and leave her alone. He then escorted her to her seat and she gave him her thanks. Then from then on things got a little quieter until she was called to the principal's office.
Flashback: Jun entered the office with a nervous look on her face. She saw her principal sitting behind her desk doing paperwork. You called for me, Principal Yuki? Yuki looked up from her paperwork and smiled a big smile at Jun. Yes, I did, Motomiya. We thought that we'll never be able to see you again since your disappearance 2 months ago. I already called your parents about your return, she stated calmly. What did they say? She asked, fearing the reaction her parents would say over disappearance. They wanted you to call them, because they are out of town on a business trip. But they did tell me to tell you that they're glad that you're back and they miss you very much, she said with a warm smile on her face. Thank you, Ms. Yuki. I'll call them right away, she said, rushing out the principal's office, missing the dark laugh coming from the room. End flashback. She tried calling her parents on her cell, but they never picked up. She just figured that they were busy and would call her back when they got a chance. She was brought out of her thoughts when she heard 4 familiar voices coming from the stairs. She shot a glance at Lalamon, who nodded her head as Jun pointed her digivice at her, and she was instantly materialized into it. Lalamon, I want you to send the challenges out now. Remember to sincerity and friendship. Make sure you use my crest name, okay? She asked quietly. Right, Jun. Sending now, she said with a smile. Thanks, Lalamon. You're the best, she said, and was rewarded with a big smile. She quickly clips her digivice to her bag and waits for her 4 guests to show up. She didn't have to wait long when the faces of Yagami, Taichi the child of courage, Takanochi Sora the child of love, Tachikawa Mimi the child of sincerity, And Ishida? Matt? Yamato, the child of friendship. She hid a smirk and waved them over.
Hi guys, how you been? She said happily while taking a bite out of her sandwich. The others take a seat around her and start eating their own lunches.
Okay Jun, but that's not what we wanted to talk to you about, Tai said bluntly, staring at Jun intently, who didn't seem fazed at all. He was about to say something else when he was elbowed into his side by Mimi. Sorry Mimi. Jun, this is Tachikawa Mimi, and Mimi, this is Motomiya Jun, he said, eating a rice ball. Mimi and Jun shook hands, acknowledging each other.
So Jun, what happened to you? Sora asked, eating some of her dango.
Nothing really, I just couldn't take the stress of being at home. With my brother berating me like he did, is what broke me, so I left for a while, she said in a sad tone and had to give herself a mental pat on the back. The others seemed to have bought it, but when she got a good look at Sora, she had narrowed her eyes a bit. We apologize for what Davis said to you. What he said to you was harsh and uncalled for. He told us about how you found out about us having Digimon and how you wanted to help. We were a little shocked that someone found out about us like you did. But I guess that's our own fault for not paying attention to our surroundings, Tai said as he took another bite out of his rice ball. That's right, we should have done just that, but like Tai said, what Davis said was uncalled for. And if we would have known you knew about us, we would have asked for your help in times of need, Matt said, giving her a slight smile. Jun smiled back at him and then heard a beeping sound coming from both Matt and Mimi. Jun hid a smirk as they reached into their respected pocket or bag and pulled out their D-terminals. They both read over them and had a frustrated look on their face. Who the hell is this child of passion? Matt said in slight disbelief. Mimi looked at him in shock. You got one too, Matt? Mimi said in a confused tone. The others were looking at each other, before looking at the two who seemed to be lost in their own thoughts. What are the two of you talking about? Sora asked, confused, before her D-terminal went off, as well as Tai's. They both looked at them before looking at each other. Did you two get a challenge from this child of passion person? Matt asked, trying to find out what was going on. No minds from the child of wisdom? Sora said as she reread her challenge. And I got one from the child of chaos? Tai said, frustrated. Jun looked up at them in fake confusion. What are you talking about? She asked in a fake irritated tone. The others forgot that she was there and began feeling her in. Each of the chosen children each has a special trait about themselves that is stronger than the rest. I am the chosen child of courage, Matt is the chosen child of friendship, Sora is the chosen child of love, Mimi is the chosen child of sincerity, Joe is the chosen child of reliability, Izzy is the chosen child of knowledge, Carrie, my sister, is the chosen child of light, TK. Matt's younger brother is the chosen child of hope, your younger brother Davis is the chosen child of miracles, and Ken is the chosen child of kindness. And I just got issued a challenge by someone calling him the child of chaos. Matt and Mimi by someone called the child of passion. And Sora from someone called the child of wisdom, he explained, slightly frustrated. He then hears his D-terminal beep again. He flips it open and let out another frustrated sigh. What is it now, Tai? Mimi asked before taking a bite out of her sandwich with an eyebrow raised. It's from Davis. He said he and Ken got a challenge from a person called the Child of Spirit and that he was going to meet the person in the digital world after school, he said with a frown before standing up. I'm going to talk to Izzy and ask him if he could find out who these guys are. Bye everyone, I'll see you in class, Tai said after grabbing his lunch and walking away. So when are you meeting these people for your challenge? Jun said, standing up with the rest of them. They wanted us to meet today, near the Kuromon village, Mimi said with a sigh.
Really? Me too, Sora said in shock. It seems like you guys are going to be busy. Too bad I can't come and watch you guys wipe the floor with them, but I have 2 months of homework to catch up on, she said with a frustrated sigh. The three friends give her sympathetic looks before bidding her farewell and that they'll see her in class.
Now let's finish our lunch, Lalamon, with Davis and company, in the digital world.
After receiving his challenge form, the Child of Spirit, Davis had been in a dark mood.
He told the others about his challenge and was surprised that Ken had gotten the same one from the same person. He was even more surprised to hear that his idol and some of the original chosen got some of the same challenges. And the thing that surprised him the most was that his runaway sister had returned.
He felt bad what he had said about her and was going to apologize when he got back from facing Ken in the digital world.
Davis didn't see her that night and just put it off that she was staying with one of her friends for the night. When she didn't return the next day, that's when he and his family began getting worried. Days passed and she still hadn't returned, so they called the police to see if they could find her. But they came up with nothing. It was like she had just simply vanished from existence and now she reappears like nothing had happened. Daisuke may not be the smartest person, but he knew something was going on with his sister, he just doesn't know what. He arrived at the digital world a little over 10 minutes ago with the others. Normally he would be flirting with Carrie, but he had too much on his mind at the moment. He heard buzzing in the air and looked up to see Ken and Stingmon flying towards the village. He smiled a big smile at his friend as he landed and Stingmon evolved back into his rookie form Warman. Ken bent down and picked Warman up and carried him over to where the others were waiting. "Yo Ken, glad to see that you finally decided to join us," he said sarcastically with his smile widening at his friend's frustrated look. "You try coming to the digital world right away when you have to help the teacher sort out her paperwork," Ken said glaring slightly. "Your sensei had you help her with her paperwork?" Davis asked in disbelief. "Yes she did, but that's beside the point. What's your thought about all of this?" Ken asked sitting on a rock and watched as Warman went to go play with the other Digimon. "To tell you the truth I'm nervous, but nevertheless ready for a good battle," Davis said with a smirk. That's when the original Chosen showed up. "Davis, Ken, are you ready to fight these so-called Chosen of Chaos, Spirit, Wisdom, and Passion?" Tai said with a grin on his face. "I'm always ready. What about you Tai?" Davis said adjusting his goggles a little. The other Chosen soon gathered around to see what Davis and Tai was talking about. "Do you even have to ask?" he replied as he waited for the challengers to arrive. He didn't have to wait long, because everyone in the area felt a strong wind in the area that lasted for a second before it died down. When everyone uncovered their eyes they saw 4 figures wearing black hooded cloaks with black gloves, black slightly baggy pants with black combat boots on. The thing that caught the others' attention were the tags and crest hanging around their necks. "So you're all finally here," Takato said with a slightly altered voice. It was a little deeper and he spoke in a cold tone that sent shivers down the other's spine. "Who are you?" Hikari said as she stepped out into the open. Takato let out a sigh as he found himself staring into Carrie's brown eyes, but nonetheless answered her question. "The Child of Chaos," Takato said as he turned his head to stare at Tai's frowning form. "Are the rest of you going to introduce yourselves?" TK said with a frown also on his face as Patamon rested on his head. "Keep your hat on, Hope Boy," Naruto said with a small laugh earning a glare from TK and a small giggle from Jun. "I'm not going to tell you my name, but if you want to call me something call me Spirit," he said with a big smile even though he knew they couldn't see it. Naruto's voice was also altered. It sounded a lot older, but you could still recognize it as Naruto, if you knew him long enough. Shikamaru spoke next and only said one word. "Wisdom," he spoke in monotone. He knew if he spoke like he usually did, he would be instantly recognized, so he decided to go with the monotone approach or what he called it, imitating Shino. Jun then went next after figuring how she was going to speak. "And I'm Passion," she spoke in a serious yet playful tone. Her voice was a lot smoother and she spoke in a slight deeper tone, making her sound older than she actually was.
"So what do we do now?" Sora asked as she stared at the 4 Chosen.
"We do exactly like we told you. We're going to fight. We challenge a select few to a fight. The reason why we are doing this is simple. We want to test our strengths against the ones who saved the digital world over countless times," Passion said with a shrug of her shoulders. "So where do we fight?" Joe asked as he wiped his glasses with Gomamon sitting right by him.
"Follow us," Sprit said as he and the others led the Chosen children to a big open field where there was a pond nearby.
"This is where we'll fight. And I'll be the first one to go," Spirit said as he stretched his legs and arms. The others watched confused thinking how a human was going to fight a Digimon. "Wait, you're going to fight? Where are your Digimon anyway if you're really Chosen children?" Davis said with a frown on his face. The others too realized that they had no Digimon with them. "To answer your questions, yes I'm fighting. And my partner is right here," Spirit said as he pulled out his black and gray Digivice and pressed the last button on it. Black data soon gathered out of the Digivice and onto the ground into a black cat with blue gloves and a blue tail ring. Its yellow eyes glared at the group before a smirk appeared on its face. The group gasps in shock at who the Digimon appeared to be. Gatomon even seemed to be glaring at the Digimon in hatred and disgust. "Meet my partner, Black Gatomon, meet my partner, Black Gatomon," Spirit said as he introduced his partner. Black Gatomon smirked at the shock expressions on the Chosen children and their partners' faces. "What do I have something on my face?" she asked in mock innocence while tilting her head to the side slightly. This knocked everyone out of their shock and Gatomon was the first one to speak.
"You," Gatomon snarled as she leapt towards Black Gatomon, but before she could land a hit on the dark Digimon she was grabbed by her neck by one very amused Spirit. This sent shock through everyone their respect for Wisdom, Chaos, and Passion because they always knew he could move at speeds like that. The other Chosen didn't know about it had their eyes wide and jaws on the ground.
"That wasn't very nice to try to attack my partner like that without any warning," Sprit said with a big smile as he gently placed Gatomon back on the ground only to have her rush Black Gatomon again but was once again caught by Spirit. She blinked once then twice and then she turned her head slightly to see Spirit again. But this time he wasn't smiling, he had a frown on his face and everyone in the field. Gadaman, I'm only going to say this once. If you try to attack my partner again without having a valid reason, I will have her delete you. He spoke without any of the amusement in his voice that he had before. His voice was so cold that it sent shivers down everyone's spines, including his comrades, not including Black Gadaman. Just to make sure he got his point across, he directed a little of his killing intent at her, making her shiver in his hand. Thinking he got his point across, he gently placed her down again and walked back over to the others, but not before Black Gadaman hopped onto his shoulders. Once he reached his spots by the others, he spoke again, but this time in a lighter tone. Passion, if you wouldn't mind. Please call the first fight, Spirit asked in a polite manner. Passion nodded her head and appeared in the middle of the field in a blink of an eye. She then raised her hand into the air and a microphone appeared into her hands. The others wondered where she got the microphone from and how she was planning on using it with no speakers or plugs. And because of those thoughts, they weren't prepared for what happened next. Ladies, gentlemen and Digimon, she shouted through the microphone and her voice echoed through the entire field and digital world. Everyone in the field wondered how she echoed her voice throughout the area, but Wisdom figured it out instantly. She must be using chakra to enhance her voice throughout the area. Unknown to the chosen or true chosen, they were being watched by a figure cloaked in darkness, watching the whole thing with interest. The first match is Spirit and Black Gadaman versus Davis and his Vmon with his partner Ken and his Warman, she said with enthusiasm. Spirit walked calmly into the field with Black Gadaman still on his shoulders. Davis and Ken walked up next with their Digimon right next to them. Alright, our competitors are here. Before we begin, here are the rules. There is only one rule and one rule only, she said loudly, and the people in the area could have sworn they heard cheering from around them. And that rule is: under no circumstances will there be any deleting their opponent's Digimon. Now let the first match between the True Chosen and the Chosen Children begin, she shouted as she vanished and appeared by the other True Chosen. Chaos turned towards her with a raised eyebrow raised. Was all that really necessary? He asked in an annoyed voice. Of course it was. Now shut up and watch, the match is about to start, she said in happy voice and turned her attention to the field. Davis and Ken was a little bit away from their Digimon and watched as Black Gadaman jumped off of Spirit's shoulder. Davis watched as both Spirit and Black Gadaman walked up to his and Ken's Digimon. He actually wondered if Spirit was actually going to fight with Black Gadaman against his and Ken's Digimon. Are you really going to fight, Spirit? Vmon asked in worry. Spirit just chuckled and Vmon didn't know what he found what was so funny. Yes, I am. Now I advise you to come at me with everything you have if you want to win, Spirit said as he placed his hands in his pants pockets and put left foot a few inches in front of his right foot. Black Gadaman just flexed her claws while both Ken and Davis pulled out their D3 Digivice. They nodded their heads towards to each other and both of their Digimon were engulfed in a flash of light. Vmon was engulfed in a blue light and Warman in a black light. Vmon Digivolve 2, Warman Digivolve 2, when the light died down a larger version of Vmon stood in his place. He had a long blue tail and giant bat-like wings on his back. He grew a large metal blade-like horn on his nose and he had a gray V on his chest with two small lines under it making it look like an X. When the light died down on Warman, in his place was a green insectoid Digimon with long green antennae on his head with red stripes in them. His red bug eyes stared down at Black Gadaman unblinking. He had white claws connected to a black glove-like thing that had spikes on them. He also had the same material for his feet and the same white claws for toes. The same material was also on his shoulders with white spikes on them. X-Vmon, Stingmon, the two Digimon shouted in unison. The two champion Digimon stared down the human and the dark champion with impassive eyes. They all stared at each other and as if a timer went off they all charged at each other. Naruto ducked under a punch sent by X-Vmon and countered with a chakra-enhanced kick to his jaw, sending him high into the air. How the hell did he do that? Davis shouted in disbelief. He then turned his attention to Stingmon fight to see him losing as well. Black Gadaman was dodging all off Stingmon's strikes with her smirk never leaving her face. Stingmon was getting frustrated that he couldn't strike the dark Digimon and decided to take it up a notch. Spiking finish, he shouted as the spikes on his shoulders extended and a pink energy on his forearms activates. He rushes at Black Gadaman in high speeds and aimed his attack right at her small little body. Luckily for her, she dodges the attack, just missing a fatal blow making the attack graze her shoulder. She jumps a few feet away from Stingmon and flexes her claws slightly. I have to say you're pretty good, Stingmon, she said with a small smirk, before it widened. Now allow me to take it up a notch as well, she said as she dug her claw into the ground and charged the insect Digimon as he claws shoved up dirt. Stingmon saw that her speed was fast, but he could still keep up with it. That was exactly the Dark Digimon wanted Stingmon to think as she lifted her claw out of the ground and vanished in thin air. What Stingmon didn't know was that Black Gatomon was moving at high speeds that no one could keep up with besides spirit, passion, chaos, and wisdom. Stingmon felt the air shift around him, before he felt a punch hit him in his back. Cat punch, Black Gatomon shouted as she watched Stingmon sail towards the water, before he stopped himself in midair and glared at her as he charged her again. She simply stood her ground and raised her fist as a dark aura surrounded it. As Stingmon sent a punch at her, he was surprised along with everyone else when his punch went right through her and she had simply faded away. They were even more surprised when Black Gatomon appeared under Stingmon's still floating form and punched him with her glowing dark claw. Dark punch, she cried with a smirk as she watched him fly high into the air at high speeds. Ken watched unshocked and turns to the others wanting an explanation about what had just happened. How did she do that? He asked bewildered. Thanks to her acute hearing, Black Gatomon turns to him with her smirk never leaving her face. That was a technique called the Zanzoken. It allows me to create afterimages of myself, she said. Once she was done, she turned her head to where her partner was fighting and wasn't surprised to see that he was winning. That's it, take this, Xveman shouted as the symbol on his chest started glowing. The others looked startled at what he was doing, but couldn't really blame him. Ever since the fight started, he was being beaten into the ground by a human who did nothing but kick. This is what had frustrated the champion Digimon for so long. How could someone fight with only their feet and not their hands? Well, this was something Xveman or his partner has ever heard of, but it was happening right in front of their eyes. X-Laser, he shouted, shooting a laser in a form of an X from his chest at Spirit from his position high in the sky, who stared at it with an impassive gaze. He focused some chakra into his legs and jumped high into the sky and over the attack, dodging it completely. Xveman was shocked and had no time to dodge. The attack. Spirit was about to hit him while flipping rapidly to his motionless shock form as he hit him with the heel of his shoe, sending him rocketing towards the ground. Concass Crush, he shouted as Xveman impacted the ground, causing it to shake violently and making a giant dust cloud to appear. Davis watched on in shock and ran towards Xveman to see if he was alright and was still able to fight. When he got there, he was surprised to see Vemon weakly getting to his feet inside a deep crater. He had blood dripping down his head, but he managed a weak grin. We saw Davis appear by his side. Davish, this guy is strong. I won't be able to beat him as a champion. I need to reach my ultimate level and we need Stingmon to do it, he said weakly as he slowly began to climb out the crater. He wasn't surprised when Davis appeared by his side and helped him walk out the crater. When they came out of it, they saw Stingmon rocketing towards the ground, but he had caught himself right before he hit. Davis rushed over to Stingmon's floating form and watched as Ken ran over to them. Ken, we need to go to Ultimate if we want to win, Davis said as he approached. Ken nodded his head in agreement and waited for Davis to evolve Vemon again. While this was happening, the Chosen were talking among each other. Sidelines. Who in the hell are these guys? Yole shouted as she watched Black Gatomon walk over to Spirit, who watched as Ken and Davis regrouped with each other. It's like they said the true Chosen, Joe said as he pushed up his glasses slightly. Still, no human should be able to do the things he did, and Xveman is one of our strongest Digimon, she protested in outrage. Yole, there is nothing we can do about it. These two are strong and we can only hope that the others aren't as strong as them, Hawkmon said as he eyed both Spirit and Black Gatomon, who looked bored out of their minds. No, their friends are probably just as strong as those two, Gatomon said as she eyed Black Gatomon with narrowed eyes. I know. If Xveman and Stingmon DNA digivolved, they would be strong enough to beat those two, Yole said with a triumphant smirk. The other Chosen who hadn't participated in the conversation watched the fight intently. Battle. Once Vemon evolved back into Xveman, both Davis and Ken held up their D3s and they both radiated the same blue color and their Digimon shined with the same color. Xveman shouted as he turned into blue data. Stingmon shouted as he turned into green data. DNA digivolved too, they shouted in unison as they formed a new Digimon. The new Digimon had Xveman's wings, lower legs with Stingmon's hands and body. It also had a mask on with 2 extra blue wings right above his white wings. Pildramon, the new Digimon shouted in a dual voice of both Xveman and Stingmon. Then the unexpected happened. Black Gatomon smirked and so did her partner. Even though the others couldn't see it, they felt it as if he was showing his face. Now this is what I've been waiting for, Black Gatomon said as she licked her claws in anticipation. Naruto nodded his head and jumped back away from the fight. Now that it was one Digimon and not two, he had to stand back or it wouldn't be a fair fight for his opponents. Davis caught this and gave a cocky smirk. What's wrong, Spirit? Afraid that now we have Pildramon? That you're going to stop fighting like a coward and let you Digimon fight by herself, he taunted, but Spirit didn't seem fazed by the remark and replied to Davis's taunt with one of his own. "No, that's not it at all," he said with a wave of his hand before he continued. "I just stepped out because it wouldn't be fair for you if I continued to fight with Black Gadaman," he said with a smirk on his face. "So this way you have a better chance at winning," he said with a small laugh. "Now show me your power," he said in complete seriousness, making Davis and Ken stare at him for a full minute before ordering their Digimon to attack. "Black Gadaman, watch out, he's a high ultimate level Digimon. So stay on your toes," Spirit said as he watched Black Gadaman charge the ultimate level Digimon. She was surprised when Paildramon simply vanished and she heard a voice coming from the sky. "Desperado Blaster," he shouted as he shot over 1,000 energy bullets from the weapons on his hips at the shocked Black Gadaman. As she saw the weapons home in on her position, she raised her claw into the air as it was surrounded by a dark aura. "Dark Punch," she shouted as she punched the ground, and it sent her high into the air, and before she could rejoice, Paildramon appeared in front of her and punched her in the face, sending her flying towards the pond. Before she could hit it, Paildramon flew down and appeared behind her and kicked her high into the sky. Black Gadaman felt her back aching in pain and twisted her body so she could locate Paildramon before he could strike her again. "Above you," Spirit shouted in his mind to Black Gadaman through their mind link. She quickly spun her body and looked up to see a smirking Paildramon. "Take this, Cable Catcher," he shouted as he shot his claws at Black Gadaman's slightly hovering form and entangled her with the wires connected to his claws. He then began to spin in place before he was nothing more than a black and green tornado in the sky. As he finished building his momentum, he released his wires and flung her towards the ground at breakneck speed. When she impacted the ground, the land shook around them and a huge dust cloud surrounded the area. Spirit, seeing what had happened, vanished from his spot and reappeared in the crater where Black Gadaman was laying with a dark and pained expression on her face. "Are you feeling all right, Black Gadaman?" Spirit asked as he kneeled by his glaring partner. "I could have beat that bastard easily if I had my true power," she grumbled with a frown on her face. Spirit shook his head at her power rant. "Do you still want to fight? Because I'll understand if you want to give up," he said with his hood hiding his smirking face and hiding the pain he was also feeling. Black Gadaman glared at him heatedly and pushed herself to her knees and then slowly to her feet. "Bastard, of course I'm still able to fight. As much as I hate to ask this, but I need to evolve to the next level to beat this guy," she said while crossing her arms over chest as she skillfully jumped onto his shoulder. Naruto shook his head and jumped out of the crater, and seeing the surprised faces of the Chosen and their Digimon. They watched as Black Gadaman hopped off of Spirit's shoulder with her arm hanging limply at her side, but she had confident smirk on her face that irritated Davis and Yole greatly. "Your partner is on her last legs. You're going to lose, so give up," Davis said with a smirk, but that smirk soon died with what Spirit said next. "Sorry, but she still wants to fight, and who am I to deny her?" he said as a black Digisoul covered his body. "What is that?" Ken asked with his eyes narrowed. "This is my Digisoul." "Now prepare to be defeated," he said with a chuckle. He then whipped out his Digivice and put his hands on it, and a blast of black energy shot out of it and hid Black Gadaman, engulfing her in a black aura. When the light died down, many of the Chosen recognized her as Lady Devimon, but with a few key differences. She didn't have a mask covering her face, and it revealed dark ruby red eyes. Her long white hair that reached down past her back. She had black lipstick on her pale, almost gray skin. She was dressed in clothing similar that of Lady Devimon, except that she white chains instead of gray. Her nails on her claws were white in color instead on red, and the purple folds in her boots were white as well. "Levia, Lady Devimon," she cried, and then smirked when she saw the shocked faces. Not waiting for the Paildramon to get out of his shock, Levia, Lady Devimon rushed him with her claw arched back as a dark glow appeared around it. Just coming out of his shock, he wasn't prepared for the strike that connected with his stomach. "Dark Claw," she shouted as she punched him in his stomach, making him bend over in pain, before he was kneed in his chin. Levia grabbed him by his legs while smiling a cruel, sadistic smile that sent shivers down everyone's spine, including her partners. Then something happened that shocked the Chosen children and their Digimon. Black angel wings shot out of Levia's back, before she took off into the air, leaving a few black feathers behind. Levia flew high into the air, holding a death grip on Paildramon's legs. Paildramon struggled to release himself from Levia's grip, but couldn't release himself. "Yes, I think this is a good enough height," Levia said as she looked over the area. She was about 500 feet in the air and she had a sick gleam in her eye. "What do you mean?" Paildramon demanded as he struggled even harder to free himself. "Ah, you'll see," she said in a voice filled with sadistic glee. Her claws once again began to glow a black eerie color, and she slowly started to spin in place, before she slowly but steadily began to pick up speed, with her chains slowly circling around his body. Back down on the ground, the Chosen and the true Chosen were watching as Levia spun Paildramon in a circle, creating a small vortex in sky. Chosen sidelines. Why is she spinning Paildramon like he's having a round inside a dryer machine? Gomamon said as he watched the two Digimon spin around and around and around again. Gomamon, now is not the time, Joe said with a glare to his Digimon's direction.
Come on Joe, you have to admit it, he does look like he's spinning in one of those dryer machines, he said as his head did circle motions as he watched the mini tornado become even larger. Joe just rubbed his temples in frustration and stared at the fight with a steady glare.
Battle. It seems like our match is about to come to an end, Spirit said with a light chuckle that was heard throughout the whole clearing. Davis glared at him in frustration and anger. Shut up, just wait until Paildramon gets free. He'll show you who will be the victor then, Davis shouted and then continued. There's no way someone as weak as her could stand up to Paildramon. As soon as he said that, the vortex Levia was creating grew larger and started shooting out black flames. Weak, you say? Levia shouted from within the tornado, startling the Davis and the others, and Spirit was mentally cursing. Whenever someone had questioned her power, she would fly off the deep end and destroy everything around her just to prove to the Digimon or person foolish enough to call her weak, before she literally tore them to shreds with her claws or just outright deleted them. Wisdom, passion, and chaos had worried looks on their faces, because they knew what was about to happen and they were scared for Paildramon's and Davis's safety. I'll show you weak, dark flaming twister, she shouted, confirming Wisdom's and the others' previous assumptions. Once she finished shouting the name of her attack, the twister grew faster and black flames grew larger, and the viewers back on the ground watched as a huge black fireball shot out of it and collided with a nearby cliff. They then watched as it was flung from the cliff through the forest, creating a burning fiery path as it sailed. The group began to run towards the fireball when it suddenly shot back into the air and back into the twister. The twister then came to a stop and two figures fell from the sky, while Levia merely floated in the air with a smug grin on her face. As the figures approached the ground, Davis and Ken immediately recognized the figures as Demi-Vimon and Monomon took off after them. Moments before they hit the ground, both Ken and Davis caught their respective Digimon in their hands and looked down at their battered and bruised forms in worry and anger. They were worried over their partner's condition and angry with Spirit and his partner for doing what they did to their partners.
How are you feeling, Minoman? Ken asked as he rubbed his partner's small head.
A little hurt, but I'm fine, just need some rest, Monomon said as he fell unconscious. Ken smiled a sad smile and turns to Davis and Demi-Vimon. Demi-Vimon, speak to me, say anything to tell me you're alright, Davis said, holding his partner gently in his hands. Demi-Vimon's, whose eyes were once closed, cracked open one eye. I want a lot of food when we get back home, Davish, Demi-Vimon said with a weak smile and laugh. Davis smiled back and watched as his partner also fell unconscious. He then turned his head to Spirit and the smirking Levia Lady Devimon.
You two weren't as strong as I thought you two would be, Spirit said in a disappointed tone while crossing his hands over his chest. Levia nodded her head with her partner and evolved back into Black Gatamon with a frown also on her face.
What was that? Ken said in obvious anger with his fist clenched and shaking at his sides. He said that he thought you and your partners would be stronger, and I have to say I'm disappointed as well, Black Gatamon said with her frown deepening.
Shut up and wait, you just wait and we'll show you, Davis shouted with his anger rising to dangerous levels.
Can't wait, and maybe you two will give me and my partner a better challenge next time, Spirit said as Black Gatamon jumped onto his shoulder and both vanished and reappeared by his companions. Ken and Davis both glared at him before walking back to their friends. Davis, Ken, how are those two? Sora asked as she looked over at the two unconscious Digimon. Joe pulled out his medical supplies and bandaged up the two injured Digimon. They're fine, just a little bruised, Davis said with a small frown, with his anger still visible on his usually happy features. Don't worry about it, Davis. We'll avenge you when it's our turn to fight, Matt said, placing his hand on Davis's and Ken's shoulder. Davis nodded his head, and that's when Passion appeared back in the field and raised her hand once again towards the sky, and like before, a microphone fell out of the sky and appeared in her hands. While she did this, everyone in the area had one thought on their minds.
Where the hell does she keep getting those microphones from?
And the winner is Spirit and his partner Black Gatamon, she shouted, and they really did hear cheering around them, but they couldn't pinpoint where. Now I have to say that was an exciting match. Let's just hope we get to see more like it, so we don't disappoint the audience, she said, striking a pose, and those gathered could swore they heard catcalls and people shouting other perverted things. Chaos shakes his head and turns to Wisdom, who was trying his best not to look at the clouds above his head. Do you know where she keeps getting the microphone from, and where also the cheering is coming from? He asked while sweat dropping. And why the hell she seems so enthusiastic about all of this? Sorry, but I don't understand the female mind, he said in his usual tone of voice, since they were out of the chosen children and their Digimon's hearing range. And the thing with the crowd, I have no idea where it's coming from. Maybe it's just Jun doing a genjutsu or something like that, he said as he finally gave into the urge to look up at the clouds above his head. Okay. Let's see who gets to fight next. By the way, good fight Naruto and you too Black Gattaman, Chaos said as his voice returned back to normal as well. Naruto gave him a foxy smile and knew that he couldn't see it, just nodded his head and Black Gattaman just smirked. Before anything else could be said, Passion began to speak again. Our second match will be yours truly against Mimi and her Palman and Yamato and his Gabuman. Now will our fighters please take the field? And Wisdom, can you start off the fight for us? She demanded more than asked because she knew how much he tried to avoid work at all cost. Wisdom sighed and walked lazily onto the field while rubbing the right side of his neck with his left arm. Once he reached the middle of the clearing, he let out a sigh before speaking in monotone. The second match is Passion and her Lalamon. Here Passion pulled out her Digivice and materialized Lalamon out of it. Versus Mimi and Palman with Yamato and Gabuman. Now before we start, are you able to evolve into your ultimate forms? He asked, addressing Palman and Gabuman.
No. We lost that ability a little over a year ago when our partners gave up their crest to free the sovereigns, Palman said with sadness in her voice. Yeah, I miss my two buddies were Garuruman and Metal Garuruman, Gabuman said with sadness also in his voice. Luck for you guys, we can give you that power to do that, Wisdom said as he summoned a brown ball of energy in the air and in a bursts of light shot out of it and hit the Chosen's partner Digimon, making them glow brightly. When the light hit Demi-Vmon and Minoman, they both evolved back into their rookie forms with all their injuries healed and their energies renewed.
Vmon, you're back. How you feeling, buddy? Davis asked, checking over his partner, still worried over his past injuries. I'm feeling great, Davis, Vmon replied, giving a thumbs-up gesture. How about you, Warman? Ken asked in a calm voice that was filled with concern. I feel like $1 million, Ken. Well, however that feels like, but I feel great, Warman said as he jumped into Ken's arms. Sora smiled at that before turning her attention back to Wisdom. Are you saying that we can go ultimate and above again without the power of our crest? Sora asked with hope in her voice. Yeah, it will. And you can even go beyond that if you have the power to do so.
Now, without wasting any more of my time and yours, I now declare the second match to begin in 3, Wisdom said as he walked towards his companions in a very slow pace.
2. He continued to count as he walked even slower to his destination, making everyone there to develop a twitch in their eyebrows. 1. Right when they were about to yell at him to move his slow ass, he vanished in a swirl of leaves and reappeared by his friends. Begin, he said in monotone, making everyone glare at him. Mimi brought out her Digivice and stared at it intently before resting her gaze on Palman. Ready, Palman? Mimi asked with determination in her voice. Ready, Mimi, Palman said with determination burning in her eyes. It's time to evolve, she said as her Digivice shined a bright green and Palman was engulfed in a green light. Palman Digivolved too. When the light died down, in the place of Palman was a giant Haniwa-faced cactus with red boxing gloves on its hands with a tuft of orange hair on its head. Togeman, Passion cast a gazed at her partner, before she lifted her hand and a pink Digisoul appeared in it. Lalamon, prepare to evolve, Passion said in a serious voice. Ready when you are, Passion, Lalamon said, giving her partner a small smile. Digisoul charge, she cried as she placed her Digisoul into her Digivice and Lalamon was covered in a bright pink light. Lalamon Digivolved too. When the light died down, Lalamon was no longer there. In her place was a large plant that resembled a sunflower that had leaf-like pixie wings on her back. She also had a long green tail connected to her. Sunflowmon, she cried, then immediately charged Togeman, who saw her charging and put up a guard. Passion turned away from that battle and fixes her attention on Matt. So, are you going to fight or watch Mimi and her partner do all the work? Passion asked while crossing her arms over her chest. Shut up, Matt snarled as he turned to Gabuman, who was itching to fight. Ready, Gabuman? I'm ready, Matt, Gabuman said in a rough voice. He was about to make Gabuman evolve, but Passion stopped him from doing that. I want you to evolve him into his ultimate form. I want to know if the great child of friendship is all he cracked up to be, she taunted as she cracked her neck and stretched her arms and legs. Matt glared at her and shared a glance with Gabuman, who took a running start towards Passion. You asked for it. Now let's see if we can really go ultimate, he said with a smirk as his Digivice glowed a bright blue and Gabuman was engulfed in a bright light. Gabuman Digivolved too. When the light died down, in the place of Gabuman was a giant, wolf-like beast with periwinkle fur that was white for the underpart and had dark blue stripes on the outer. He had golden feral eyes with a long, somewhat curly tail. Garuruman. Garuruman shouted, then he leapt in the air and was once again engulfed in a blue light as Matt's Digivice shined even brighter. Garuruman Digivolved too. As the light died down, rocketing towards Passion was a werewolf-looking Digimon. He wore a belt across his upper body and blue jeans with a skull on his left thigh. A glove covers his left arm and he had spiked brass knuckles on both hands. He also wore earrings and bandages on various parts on his body. "We're Garuruman," he shouted as his arms crossed over his chest like an X as he was meters away from Passion. "Wolfclaw," he cried as he made an X slash at Passion, who narrowly dodged the attack. Not wanting to be outdone, Passion rushed over to Garuruman and jumps over his head while giving him a spinning heel kick to his back. This sends the wolf Digimon stumbling a bit, but he quickly recovers and kicks Passion in her chest, sending her flying through the air. Jun flips in mid-flight while focusing chakra into her hand and placing it on the ground while spinning slightly. She pushed up just as Garuruman tries to do a sweep kick to knock Passion off of her feet, but unfortunate for him he had missed and Passion twisted her body in a cat-like way and landed on the ground unharmed. Passion then gets down on all four while shaking her body like a feline, and both Gataman and Black Gataman watches with interest, but only the latter knows what Passion is planning on doing. As Passion continues to shake like a cat, chakra slowly leaks out of her and wraps around her body. On her head, chakra cat ears appear, and if one was to see inside her hood they would see that the iris in her eyes had slits in them and she had grown whisker marks on her cheeks, which were all made possible with her chakra. The chakra then overlapped her hands and feet, forming claws, and forming right above her butt was a tail made completely out of chakra. Garuruman snarled at the form and prepared to attack the moment she made any twitch in her movements. "Be prepared for my Neko rush," she said as both she and Garuruman disappeared from view, and the only thing you could hear was shock waves going through the area. "With Spirit and company. Wow, I guess Matt wasn't called one of the strongest chosen for nothing, huh?" Spirit said with a nervous laugh. "I told you they were strong. You're lucky you didn't fight both Matt and Tai," Chaos said as he shuddered at the thought of facing two of the strongest chosen. "Yeah, and me giving them that Digicore made them even stronger. So right now, instead of being a mid-ultimate, Garuruman is more on a high ultimate bordering on low mega," Wisdom yawned as he said that. "Hey, they still couldn't beat me if I was at full power," Black Gataman huffed as she crossed her arms and dismissing the ultimate. "Don't be like that, Gato-chan," Spirit said right before he was punched in the gut by his angry Digimon. "What did I tell you about calling me by that? That ridiculous name," she snarled as one of her razor-sharp nails appeared on her claws one at a time. "Not to do it," he moaned from his place on the ground holding his stomach, as he slowly picked himself up. "Good, now let's continue to watch the show," she said as she hopped on his shoulder while licking her claws. Chaos and Wisdom sweat dropped before turning to one another. "They have a weird relationship," Chaos said while shaking his head. "They do, but considering who they are, I'm not surprised at all," Wisdom replied simple, and Chaos nodded his head and went back to watching the fight. With Davis and co. "Whoa, those two sure are moving," Davis said in awe as he watched Passion and Garuruman fight. "I know, and Garuruman seem more powerful than I remember him being," Tai said as both he Agumon walked up to the others. "What do you mean, Tai?" Sora asked as she enters the conversation. "What he means is whatever that energy Wisdom gave us managed to give us a major power boost," Agumon explained. "But why would they do that?" Cody asked in confusion. "I don't know, but it looks like things between Sunflowmon and Togeman is heating up," Tai said as he pointed to the two champions in fierce combat. Battle. Togeman vs Sunflowmon. Togeman threw an uppercut to Sunflowmon's head and then gave her a 3-hit combo, driving her back. Sunflowmon flew out of Togeman reached and flew back at her, striking her in the face with her tail, sending Togeman to the ground. She then flies high into the air, staring down at Togeman just as her face starts to glow a bright yellow. Mimi sees this and knows that Togeman wouldn't survive the hit and grabbed her Digivice as it glowed green just as Sunflowmon fired her attack. "Sunshine Beam," she shouted as she fired a powerful energy blast from her face to the dazed Togeman. "Togeman," Mimi shouted as her Digivice glowed even brighter and Togeman was engulfed in a green light. "Togeman Digivolve too," she said right before she was engulfed in the energy blast. Mimi heard the others shouting in despair, thinking that Togeman was deleted, but she knew better, and if the vibrating and shining Digivice in her hand didn't tell her that Togeman survived the blast, then what she heard next confirmed it. "Lilymon," she shouted from her spot in the sky. The others wondered how she got up there and decided to ask her later. Lilymon brought her hands together and a large yellow flower formed, and then it opened, revealing a cannon. "Flower cannon," she shouted, as she shot a green blast from her cannon that hit Sunflowmon directly, making flower petals erupt from the blast while also sending Sunflowmon crashing into the pond. Not letting the opening slip by her, Lilymon rushed into the pond after the fallen Digimon. She reached Sunflowmon in a matter of seconds and grabbed her by her tail and flew back out of the water. She flew high into the air while swinging Sunflowmon by her tail and threw her down towards the ground. She then points her arms towards the falling Sunflowmon as her arms slowly open up. Raining thorns, when she said that thousands of poisonous thorns shot out of them and headed directly at Sunflowmon's prone form. Before they could reach her, the people and Digimon heard 3 shouts with 3 different things happening. Rose Whip. Passion shouted as she appeared directly in the path of Lilymon's attack with a red rose in her hand that morphed into a whip. Rose Whiplash, she cried as she began slashing rapidly in multiple directions, stopping any of the thorns from reaching her partner, and once she stopped the attack, she pulled out her Digivice and her pink Digisoul covered her entire body.
Digisoul full charge, she shouted as a pink blast shot out of her Digivice and hit Sunflowmon, engulfing her in a pink light. And before Passion could do anything else, she was kicked in her gut by Wergeruruman, sending her into the same cliff Pildramon had hit earlier.
Sunflowmon Digivolve 2. Which was heard throughout the clearing, and when the light died down around the former Sunflowmon, a new Digimon was in her place. She looked like a very feminine pink plant with white flower-like hands and feet, and she had a giant pink flower on her back. On her head was also a pink flower, but it was upside down and was covering the vines on her head that fell down like hair. Lilymon. She cried as she floated up towards Lilymon so they could see eye to eye. Ready for the second round, Lilymon? Lilymon asked with a graceful smile on her face.
Of course, Lilymon. Lilymon replied with the same graceful smile, and in unison they both attacked.
Sidelines. Chosen. Wow, Lilymon and Lilymon, Davis said with drool forming at the corners of his mouth. The others shook their heads at him, before he spoke up again. Hey, do you think they're related somehow? He asked, awaiting an answer. Lucky for him, Hawkmon answered his question. Yes, they are. They're distant cousins, and it's said that Lilymon and Lilymon has a fierce rivalry, but have the utmost respect for each other. Hawkmon explained, holding one of his feather fingers in the air as if he was giving a lecture. I see, so they're distant cousins, Davis said, whiling nodding his head.
That's all good and all, but I want to know 3 things, Joe said as he adjusted his glasses slightly.
And what's that, Joe? Sora asked, staring at him with a raised eyebrow. Joe lifted up his hands and held up 3 fingers. 1. How did Lilymon appear in the sky immediately after evolving, after we all watched her get blasted with Sunflowmon's attack? He asked as he pulled his index finger down. 2. Why is Lilymon fighting as if she's a mega-level Digimon? He questioned again as he pulled his middle finger down. And 3. How did that Passion Girl manage to do what she did with the rose? He finished as he pulled his last finger down. The others nodded their heads, agreeing with Joe's questions, and wondered at themselves. I'm sorry, Joe, but I only have an answer to one of your questions, a voice said from behind them. The group turned around to see a man wearing a white cloak with a belt tied around his waist and appeared to be wearing a black shirt underneath his cloak. He also had a hood over his head covering his face. Who are you? Tai demanded. I'm hurt, Tai. It's me, Genai, but I should warn you. I do look a little different, he said, pulling off his hood, revealing a young man with brown hair with a ponytail and had black eyes. Genai, but Genai is an old man, Sora said in disbelief, but when Genai glared at her with a twitch in his eye, she reconsidered. I am Genai. This is just a newer yet older form of mine, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you that there will be danger in the near future by a powerful source. I believe the ones you are fighting know who our new enemies will be. And from the crest I see hanging around the girl's neck, I say that they are the true chosen, he stated more than asked.
Yes, that's them, but they challenged us to some sort of tournament and they already have 1 win against us. And Genai, you still haven't answered the question you said you had an answer for, Izzy said with his laptop, recording the battles between Lilymon and Lilymon, while also recording the battle between Passion and Wergeruruman.
Yes, about Lilymon newfound speed and power. I believe when wisdom gave you all the power of the Digicore, it increased your strength and the strength of your Digimon tenfold. I also believe that when Mimi saw Togemon about to be obliterated, she tapped into her own power and gave it to Togemon to make her evolve faster into Lilymon. But because of that she is now mentally and physically connected to her, Genai explained, earning a few shocked looks from the group. What do you mean connected mentally and physically? Cody asked, with the others staring at the digital sage awaiting an answer.
It is exactly what I mean. Look out there over at Mimi's condition, he said as he pointed over at Mimi. The others turned to look at Mimi only to gasp in shock, as they see her flinching every few seconds, and they saw her bring her hands together and heard her shout, "Flower Cannon," just as Lilymon fired her attack at Lilymon. Mimi looked to be on her last legs and was holding her shoulder as if she was in pain, and she had bruises forming all over her body.
How is this possible? Izzy asked as he pointed his camera over to Mimi's punching, kicking, and dodging form. She's even moving in sync with Lilymon now, Izzy said, shocked as he watched both Mimi and Lilymon twist their bodies and raise their feet in the air, with the latter body shining a bright yellow. Then as when they shouted the name of the attack. Sun Crescent Kick. Lilymon then shot a yellow energy blast shaped like a crescent with flowers trailing behind it to Lilymon, who was hit with the attack head-on, sending her flying burnt and bruised all over. Genai stared at the fighting Digimon before turning back to the Chosen.
This is possible through the power of the Digisoul, he explained, turning back just in time to see a faint green Digisoul appear around Mimi. Unbeknownst to anyone on the field or Mimi, some of her Digisoul leaked into her Digivice, morphing it into a new form. Her old Digivice changed into a forest green and white D-Arc with Digicode written on it. The true Chosen saw Mimi's Digisoul forming around her body faintly, before disappearing completely as if it was never there.
I heard the four over there mention something about a Digisoul, but they only said it when they were about to evolve their partners, Yole said with a thoughtful look on her face.
Yes, the Digisoul is what allows you to evolve you partners, Genai explained.
What else can you tell us about the Digisoul, Genai? Davis asked with Vemon right next to him. Genai gave off an unnoticeable sigh and explained to them about the Digisoul.
Battle. Passion vs Wergeruruman. I can't hold out much longer, and all the blows Lilymon is taking is not helping me either, Passion thought as she narrowly dodged a claw strike sent by Wergeruruman. She jumped into the air while twisting her body like an acrobat and did a few back flips once she touched the ground to gain some distance between herself and the high ultimate.
She was really taking a beating, and she only had enough energy left for one last charge. And with Lilymon still taking damage, she felt that she possibly didn't even have enough for that.
She sighed at her stupidity and knew that she shouldn't have used her Neko Rush so early in her fight, and now she was paying for it.
Also, she had pulled out her Rose Whip and Rose Whiplash attacks to save Sunflowmon, but that also cost her a lot of chakra, and she knew that she had to act now or she would go out looking like some kind of weakling. She sighed to herself and prepared to go through some hand seals for another new jutsu she created, when she suddenly clutched her chest in pain and turns to the sky to see Lilymon being kicked in her chest by Lilymon's Flower Cutter attack, right before Lilymon shot a Lila Shower attack at point range, knocking both of the Digimon out of their ultimate forms and back into their rookie forms. When the two of them got knocked out of ultimate, Mimi collapsed to the ground holding her ribs in pain, and Jun also collapsed holding her stomach while gasping for air. Wergeruruman and Matt watched with confusion on their faces. They both cautiously approached Passion's almost unconscious form. "Hey, are you alright?" Matt asked with a concerned voice. Wergeruruman nodded his head, wanting to know the same thing. "I'm fine, just wished I could have won." "Oh well, you know the saying, you win some, you lose some, right?" she said just as she passed out from her injuries. Wergeruruman evolved back into Gabuman and watched as his partner was about to help Passion when Spirit appeared by her side. "It's okay, she's just unconscious. I have to say the two of you fought well, and I know Passion would just love to fight you two again when she gets the chance," Spirit said with mischievousness clear in his voice, and before Yamato could respond to that comment, Spirit grabbed Passion's body and disappeared in a whirl of wind. He turns his attention to Mimi, who was still clutching her ribs in pain, and runs over to her. "Mimi, what happened? Why are you holding yourself like that?" he asked as he touched her arm and watched her flinch in pain. He looks over at her in worry and didn't know what to do until Chaos appeared by him in a whirl of flames. He looks over her and goes through a few hand seals, and his hands glow a dark green and run it over Mimi's body slowly.
"Hey, what are you doing?" Yamato demanded angrily. "I'm running a medical scan over her so I can check her condition."
"It seems like she has a few fractured ribs, a twisted ankle, and showing signs of exhaustion. Luckily for her, I know a few techniques that will allow me to heal her. So I need you to trust me and allow me to heal her," Chaos said with his fake voice wavering slightly to his original, making Yamato stare at him with narrowed eyes, but nodded his head slightly. Chaos, taking this as a yes, went through a couple more hand seals, and his hands once again glowed a dark green. He placed his hands gently over Mimi's ribs and held them there for a few minutes, before moving his hands over to her ankle and healing it. Then he healed all the minor cuts over her body, and she was looking as good as new, 10 minutes later. "She's all healed now, I'm going to go." He trailed off as he saw her Digivice hanging loosely in her hand. When he sees what kind of Digivice it is, his blood freezes and the temperature around him drops about 10 degrees as memories of what his past friends did to him back in his digital world. Chaos knew that he shouldn't and couldn't be mad at Mimi for possessing a D-Arc, and he wondered how she got one, when she had a normal Digivice just a little over an hour ago. He shrugs mentally while taking a deep breath to calm her nerves. "Yamato-san," he said calmly, catching Yamato's attention. "Tell Mimi that I will be seeing her soon to discuss how to use her new Digivice in a few days," he said as he handed Matt Mimi's D-Arc, making him gasp in shock. "What is this? This isn't a D3 or one of our original Digivices," he said as he studied the Digivice. "That's a D-Arc, and just tell Mimi that I will show her how to use it in a few days," he said, walking away towards Palman, who was also unconscious. He quickly healed her and then healed Lalamon, just as Wisdom appeared in a whirl of leaves. He gently lifted Palman and teleported over to the Chosen and gave Palman to Sora and Shunshin over to Mimi and gently lifted her up and Shunshin back over to the Chosen, handed her over to Tai, who took her while giving a nod of thanks to Wisdom, who nodded back. Soon Matt and Gabuman made it back to the others with Mimi's D-Arc still in his hand. Carrie was the first to spot the Digivice in his head. "Matt, what's that in your hand?" she asked, pointing to the Digivice in his hands.
"It's Mimi's new Digivice," he explained, making all heads turns to him, and Genai walks up to him.
"May I see the Digivice, Yamato?" Genai asked. Yamato nodded his head while giving him the Digivice. "Ah, who are you? And how do you know my name?" he asked, rubbing the back of his head in confusion. "Matt, it's Genai," Tai said while never taking his eyes off of the Digivice in Genai's hands. "But Genai is in," but he was cut off when he saw Genai glare at him. "Never mind." "And you said this is Mimi's new Digivice?" Genai asked as he gave it back to Matt.
"Yeah, that Chaos guy called it a D-Arc," Matt said as he turned around to face the group of true Chosen.
"D-Arc," Izzy repeated as he snatched the D-Arc from Matt's hands and hooked it up to his laptop.
Matt looked at his hands where the Digivice was just at, before slowly turning to the typing Izzy. He had the urge to kick Izzy in his head for snatching the Digivice from his hand, but decided to deal with him later. Before anything else could be said, Spirit appeared in the middle of the field. He lifted his hand into the sky and a microphone dropped down in it. This action caused everyone to sweat drop, with a few who had a twitch in their eyes as well.
"The winner of the last fight goes to the Chosen side," he said enthusiastically, and you could just hear the crowd cheer. "Both Passion and Lalamon and Mimi and her Palman put up a great fight. Why don't you give them a round of applause?" The Chosen and True Chosen clapped, but they also heard clapping coming from around them, and the Digimon around couldn't find out where it was coming from. "Also give a round of applause for Yamato and Gabuman, because they pushed Passion to the brink of exhaustion and also showed us that you can't call the old generation weak. If you still believe there, just look back at Mimi's and Palman's fight and you'll know what I mean," he said, earning smiles and smirks from the original Chosen. Then they saw Spirit going through 20 hand seals and pointed his hands up into the sky as they glowed a dark purple. Memory replay. 20 minutes in the past, he shouted as the clouds in the sky formed a giant circle where it was showing clips of Mimi and Lilymon moving in sync. They watched as Mimi kicked high into the air while shouting, "Flower Cutter," and watched as Lilymon kicked Lilymon hard in her gut, sending her higher into the air. They saw the fierce determination burning in both Lilymon's and Mimi's eyes. The scene then changed to when Passion was still in her Nako rush, and just tried to deliver multiple claw strikes to her Geruruman, who expertly dodged each one with little problem. Once Passion finished trying to claw her Geruruman, said Digimon viciously kicked Passion in her chest, sending her a little in the air, before she was hit with a flipping axe kick, sending her back to the ground. They watched as Yamato's and Geruruman's eyes never wavering from their goal and victory. Soon the memory changed back to Mimi just as she and Lilymon both jumped back and placed their hands together while shouting, "Flower Cannon," and fired a green blast at Lilymon, who dodged the attack and countered with a Marvel Shot, and fired energy balls from her hands like a cannon at a rapid rate directly at Lilymon, who dodged the first few shots, but got hit by the rest. The gathered group watched as Mimi was blown back just like Lilymon and slowly got back to her feet while rubbing sweat off her face. The memory then ended with a picture showing a fox with 9 tails sleeping peacefully surrounded by 4 children that kind of looked familiar to the Chosen, and before they could study the picture further, the jutsu came to a close. "Did Palman and I really do all of that?" Mimi said with a yawn as she pulled out a rice ball from nowhere and gave it to a now conscious Palman and ate the other one in her hand. "Yes, you did, Mimi," Tai said while staring at the eating Mimi and Palman. "And where did you get those rice balls from?" he asked slowly. I don't know. I just went in my pocket and brought it out," she said as she got a thoughtful look on her face. "Maybe I put them in there, while I was placing my Digivice in my coat pocket with my other things. Speaking of my Digivice, where is it?" she asked while pulling out numerous of things from her pockets, including a wrapped sandwich, 6 rice balls wrapped in plastic, and 2 small boxes of dango. Suddenly she saw the D-Arc in front of her face and stared at it for a few seconds before turning to Matt, who put it in her face. "What's this?" "It's your D-Arc. A new Digivice, and Chaos said that he'll teach you how to use it," he said, relaying the message that Chaos gave him. She took it and studied it for a few seconds and clipped it to her waist, and before she could say anything, once again Spirit's voice sounded through the area. "Now it's time for our third match. This one will be Big People and Digimon. This one will be a mega level battle, meaning that it will be a fight of titans. The match is Chaos, and Chaos appeared on his side of the field in a whirl of fire and pulled out his Digivice and pressed a button on it, and black data swirled out of it. When the data finished coming out, it took the form of a black Digimon with a white belly with a red digital hazard symbol on the front of it. He had black bat-like wings for ears and his yellowish gold eyes looked feral and untamed. He had various red markings on his face, claws, tail, and feet. His long black tail shifted from left to right constantly due to his eager mood to fight a good battle. He turned his gaze to his partner before his eyes lost its feral look and took on a more innocent one just as he tackled his partner to the ground and licking his face playfully, earning a few sweat drops in the area. "Down boy, we're about to have a fight," he said, and in an instant he got off of him as if he was never on him in the first place. "So who are we fighting, Taka?" was all he got to say before Chaos covered his mouth up with his gloved hand. "Black Guilman, I'm Chaos in this form. Call me Chaos, okay boy." He watched as his partner nodded his head slowly. "Good. Okay, so who are we fighting, Chaosman?" Black Guilman asked, staring at the group of humans and Digimon across the field. "You're going to find out when Spirit tell us. Now I want you to remember, no deleting the opponent's Digimon, alright?" Black Guilman nodded his head. "Spirit, you can continue now, sorry for that," Chaos called out to an annoyed Spirit. "Yeah, whatever," he said before he coughed a few times. And introducing his partner Black Guilman. Their opponents will be the original leader of the chosen children Yagami Taichi and his partner Agumon. Now the crowd was cheering loudly, causing everyone to wince at the volume of the noise. "We have ex-Tamer leader versus original chosen leader." This caused Chaos to glare at Spirit hard and let out a massive amount of killing intent directed solely on Spirit, making him sweat bullets, but shook it off a second later. The chosen all looked at the two and wondered what he meant by ex-Tamer leader, but decided that they would ask about it later. "Now remember, this will be a mega level battle, so your partners must fight as a mega. Also remember that deleting your opponent's Digimon is directly against the rules. Now will Tai and Agumon both come onto the field and we will begin our third match," he said as both Tai and Agumon both walked slowly onto the field. Both had determined looks on their faces. When they were inches away from Chaos and Black Guilman, Tai brought out his hands in a shaking manner and Chaos took his hand and shook it. "Hope we have a good match," Tai said as he shook his hand. "I'm sure we will," Chaos replied. "So you were a leader of a team once?" he asked, trying to gather some more information on Chaos. Chaos stopped shaking his hand and gave off a sad and aggravated sigh. "Yes, I was, but they abandoned me," he said with anger in his voice. "What happened?" Tai asked quietly so no one else could listen on their conversation. "I don't want to talk about it. Now let's get ready to fight." Black Guilman is getting antsy, he said, pointing to the growling Digimon. "Alright, let's begin," he said as he and Agumon both walked away from them and Chaos and Black Guilman mimicked their movements. Once they were a good distance away from each other, Spirit's voice sounded throughout the area again. "The third match will begin now," he said as he shunshin over to where Wisdom was sitting with a now conscious Passion. They greeted each other and watched as Tai brought out his Digivice and it glowed a bright orange and Agumon glowed the same color. Chaos's body was covered in a dark red Digisoul until he focused it on his hand and it turned into a white Digisoul. "Digisoul charge. Overdrive," Chaos shouted as he placed the white Digisoul on his Digivice and a blast of white energy shot into Black Guilman as he started rushing forward. "Agumon evolve," Tai shouted and Agumon was engulfed in an orange light as he too rushed forward. "Black Guilman Digivolve 2, Agumon Warp Digivolve 2. When the light died down on both warriors, they shouted at their names to the heavens and charged each other. War Greymon flew high into the air and raised his claws above his head, forming giant ball of orange energy between them. "Terra Force," War Greymon shouts as he threw the ball of death towards the grinning Chaos Gallantmon, who lifts his shield and aims it towards the attack. Slowly the shield began to glow a dark blue and Chaos Gallantmon's grin grew, even though the gathering people and Digimon couldn't see it. "Judeka Prison," the dual shouts of Chaos Gallantmon and Chaos sounded, both thrusting their right arms forward, only for the Digimon to release a blue blast from the shield, colliding with Wargreymon's attack. A shock wave went through the area, picking up dirt and forming into a large dust cloud. Seconds passed and the dust still hasn't cleared, and when almost everyone thought both Digimon were done for, they heard sounds of fighting coming from inside the dust cloud. Tai grits his teeth as he felt pain rip through his left shoulder, and on instinct he raised both of his hands in the air in a catching motion. Closing his hands around the invisible object, Tai begins spinning in a circle rapidly, then opens his hands, just as Chaos Gallantmon was seen soaring out of the dust cloud, towards the ground, but manages to flips in midair, landing softly on the ground. Tai grins slightly and raises his arms into the air. "Terra Force," War Greymon and Tai shouts in unison, and a giant ball of orange energy shot out of the dust cloud, heading on a direct path to Chaos Gallantmon. The Dark Knight Digimon raises his shield, preparing to fire another, Judeka Prison, attack, but Chaos's voice stopped him. Don't Chaos Gallantmon. You can only handle 2 of those at most, just try to block the attack the best you can. Chaos shouts from his side of the field, his Digimon nods, and holds up his shield just as the attack engulfed his body.
Chaos himself held up his hands and beads of sweat was dripping off of his face. Collapsing to one knee, Chaos still manages to keep his hands up.
His Digisoul then shot up around him, flaring wildly, and parts of his clothes ripping off at the intensity of the aura flaring from his body.
First his gloves burned off, and parts of his pants also burned away as well.
The others watched in horror as more and more of his clothes ripped off, and all that was left was a black shirt. His black pants was missing his right pants leg, and some of his left pants leg, revealing black shorts. His jacket was burned away and lucky for him part of his hood still remained revealing his right red eye, and part of his brown hair. Gritting his teeth, Chaos flares more of his Digisoul, and managed to get to his feet, just as Wargreymann's attack shifted slightly. Throw it away, Chaos, Takato shouts, throwing his arms in the sky, Chaos Gallantmon doing the same, throwing Wargreymann's attack back at him with double the force and power, leaving Wargreymon with no time to escape the blast, and was hit with it at full force throwing him towards the ground. Tai felt the blast as if he himself was hit with it, and he collapsed to his hands and knees with blood dripping out his mouth. He looked over at Takato to see that he was also on his knees and seemed to be breathing heavily as well. Who would have thought this Digisoul thing would hurt so much? I guess this is the price we pay for being so closely connected to our Digimon, he thought, struggling to get to his feet, and that's when Wargreymon crashed into the ground behind him. He quickly turns around to see Wargreymon lying face first in the ground, a large crack in his armor, with bits of data flying out of it. He runs over him and places his hands on him and shakes him slightly. Wargreymon, how you holding up? Fine, just a little scratch. Little scratch? That looks more like someone tried to scratch you with a chainsaw and grazed you slightly.
I'm fine, but that Chaos Gallantmon is strong, but I feel so weak for some reason, Wargreymon exclaims, his eyes dimming slightly.
It's okay. Just a little data leaking out of you, explains Tai lowly, trying to soothe him, but Wargreymon began to lose even more data, startling him greatly. I still want to fight, groans out Wargreymon, slowly rising to his feet. Tai was about to shout at him not to, but he caught the determination burning in his partner's eyes. He smirked and gave the injured Chaos and Chaos Gallantmon a confident look, but gave a worried glance to Wargreymon. You sure, buddy? He asked for confirmation. Yes, I want to have one last charge with this Dark Knight, Wargreymon confirms, his confidence rolling off of him waves. And this time, I'm going to fight with you, a grinning Tai said, his crest symbol appearing on his chest, and an orange Digisoul appears around his body, leaking into his Digivice, it also leaking into Wargreymann's wound, closing it up, and making him glow a dark orange color. Tai looks down, and saw that his Digivice changed into a D-arc like Mimi's, but his was orange and white with Digicode written on it. Chaos watched this with narrowed eyes, wondering what was going on. Chaos Gallantmon didn't know what to feel at this, but he could feel his partner's confusion and anger. He knew that this wasn't going to end well for anyone if he continued to be reminded about the Tamers. Sidelines. How did his Digivice change like that? Passion asked, her eyes widening slightly.
I don't know, but the same thing happened to Mimi over there, Spirit said, pointing to the eating girl. I think I know why Ancient Arisman told us to do this now, Wisdom said, yawning, watching Tai's Digisoul slowly die down.
And what is that, Sheikah? Passion asked, sitting on the ground with Lalamon in her arms.
From what I've seen already, both Taichi and Mimi were able to call upon the power of the Digisoul and managed to morph their Digivices into D-arcs from what Takato told us of his previous one. That damn troublesome Digimon probably set all of this up so she could find out who was able to call up their Digisoul and who wasn't. And it seems that if what I gathered from all of this is correct, then 2 of Takato's old friends will be going through similar changes that those 2 have went through, he explained, a heavy frown marrying his shadowed face.
What do you mean? Spirit asked, Black Gatomon resting peacefully in his lap. Idiot, you remember the story Takato told us when these Digimon called Devas attacked his hometown? Spirit nods his head yes. And you know those with a higher than average Digisoul takes damage just as their partner does, right? Once again he nods. And remember when Takato told us that the girl named Ruki and the guy called Genria managed to feel the pain of their partners just as we do, when they're injured? Spirit nods again, still not understanding what Wisdom was getting at, but Passion did and hit Spirit across his head for his denseness. I see what you're talking about. So you're saying that Mimi, Tai, Ruki, and Genria are all capable of drawing on their Digisoul, but how is that possible? I thought only we were able to do that, she asked in wonder. I don't know, but it looks like Chaos Gallantmon and Wargreymon are about to go for a final charge, he said, nodding his head to the charging Digimon, while pulling out his Digivice.
Battle. Go CHAOSGALLANTMON, and with that both Mega Digimon charged each other.
Great Tornado! War Greymon and Tai shouts in unison, and War Greymon twists his body into a wild orange tornado. Demon's Disaster! Chaos and Chaos Gallantmon shouts in unison, a black electric attack formed into his lance, and charged right into War Greymon's attack.
They were at a standstill, and neither one was backing down. Chaos's and Taichi's Digisoul were once again flaring, and neither one looked to be ready to go down, but at last both Taichi and Chaos collapsed to the ground.
When that happened, the last of Takado's hood blew off of his face and only Hikari saw it, before he landed face first in the ground. She let out a silent gasp when she realized who it was, and decided to confront him about it tomorrow at school. Both Chaos Gallantmon and War Greymon reverted to their rookie forms, but Agumon had changed a bit. He looked pretty much normal, except now he was a little larger and had golden yellow bracers on his claws. They both ran towards their respected partners and helped them to their feet. Takado had his back to the group, so they only saw his brown hair and his black shirt. When they both reached their respected sides of the field, Passion appears in the middle of the field. Raising her hand in the air, a microphone drops out of the sky and lands in her outstretched hand. "Now that was an interesting match," she said with an enthusiastic yell, and then Takado shouts at her, still using Chaos's voice. "Stop being so damn enthusiastic and get on with it," he shouts in anger. As I was saying, the fight between Chaos Gallantmon and War Greymon was a tie. "Please give a round of applause to the two powerful Digimon," she continued, ignoring the killing intent Takado directed at her. The crowd roared with applause, the group just ignored it and clapped as well.
"And don't forget about Chaos and Taichi," she shouts, and the applause grew even louder.
"Now for our last fight for the night," she said with a sad sigh. "It will be Wisdom and his." Here Wisdom appeared onto the field and brought out his Digivice and materialized his Digimon out of it. When the blue data shot out of the Digivice, it formed into a blue dog-like Digimon with a red scarf tied around his head like a headband with red boxing gloves on.
Gaomon. These two will be facing Takenouchi Sora and Piomon with Kitojo and Gomamon. "Now will these competitors please come on down," she said, striking a sexy pose, making her breast show slightly through her clothing, causing some of the guys there to stare at her with lustful eyes, not including Davis since he was checking over Tai and looking over Agumon's new look.
"She really needs to stop doing that," Takado said, fighting away his blush. Spirit nods in silence, while trying to get the perverted images that were threatening to overflow his mind. Black Gatomon, sensing his arousal, clawed him across his face, making Naruto hold his face in pain. "What was that for?" Spirit shouts at the smirking Digimon. "For having such dirty thoughts running through your mind and for allowing your body to respond to them," she said, jumping out of his lap and onto his shoulder. Naruto looked down and blushed in embarrassment, seeing what she was talking about. "Not funny, Gatomon," he said, crossing his arms. "You couldn't just tell me. You just had to claw my face." "Damn Neko," he said, growling slightly. "Oh, poor kid having sexual desire for his big sister. That's rich," Kyubi said, laughing. Naruto ignored him and listened as Passion continued her announcing. "Are the fighters ready?" Each of them nod. "Now begin," she said as she shunshuns back over by the others. "Hey, did you guys see my cool pose?" When she asked this, both Takado and Spirit looked away from her, causing her to blink slightly and turn to Lalamon. "Was it that bad, Lalamon?" "Jun, the match is starting," she said, changing the subject, and soon enough the match began. Battle. Piomon. Gomamon. Evolve. Sora and Joe shouts in unison, as Sora's Digivice glowed red and Joe's glowed gray. Piomon was engulfed in a red light as she took flight into the air. Gomamon dived into the water as he was engulfed in a gray light. Wisdom raises his hand, and a blue Digisoul formed in it. He then places it on the Digivice, and Gaomon was engulfed in a blue light. "Digisoul charge," Wisdom said in monotone, and vanished in a shadow into some unknown area. Piomon Digivolve 2. Gomamon Digivolve 2. Gaomon Digivolve 2. When the lights died down, a giant firebird flew in Piomon's place. When Gomamon emerged from the water, he was now a giant walrus with a large horn on its head. Gaomon now looked like a wolf. He still had on his boxing gloves, but they looked more like claws. He also has bandages on his hind legs with a red scarf around his neck. Birdramon, Akakumon, Gaogamon go with Plan A, Wisdom's voice sounded through the area.
"Yes, master," Gaogamon said, turning his attention to Birdramon, who was already preparing an attack.
"Meteor Wing," she cries, flapping her wings, releasing flaming meteors from them, heading towards Gaogamon, who stared them down with an impassive gaze. Just as the attacks were about to hit, Gaogamon vanished, leaving the ground to be hit by the attack, and mini explosions littered the ground. Sora looked around trying to spot the Digimon. When she saw a shadow covering Bergermon's, she looked up and was shocked with what she saw. Galgamon was above Bergermon with his mouth wide open preparing to attack.
Bergermon above you, Sora shouts just as Galgamon released his attack.
Spiral blow, he howled, shooting a tornado from his mouth connecting with Bergermon's left wing as she barely dodged the attack. Galgamon then dives for the injured Bergermon with his claws crossed over his chest. Double dash claw, he shouts as he clawed an X-like mark on Bergermon's back sending her to the ground with a loud crash. Galgamon flipped, landing. He ran towards Akakumon, but had to dodge a claw strike from a now enraged Bergermon. Phoenix rising, she cried as she flew towards a surprised Galgamon, and then just as she reached him, she flew straight into the air with a stream of fire and smoke coming from her tail, while burning, blinding, and knocking Galgamon to the ground. Sidelines. Chosen. Mimi, what can you get on that Digimon fighting Bergermon? Yole asked, watching a temporary blinded Galgamon stand still in the smoke he was covered in, trying to shake the smoke and dirt from his eyes. Let me see, she said, pointing her D-arc along with Tai so he could get the same information loaded into his as well. Tai got the info first and read it to his friends. Galgamon Data Beast Digimon attacks, Spiral Blow, Dash Double Claw, Gaugahound. Level. High Champion, Low Ultimate. Since he was reading that, Mimi got info on Bergermon. Bergermon Vaccine Giant Bird Digimon attacks, Meteor Wing, Fire Flapping, Fenwa Rising, Mach Grinder. Level. High Champion. Tai then got the stats for Akakumon. Akakumon Vaccine Sea Animal Digimon attacks, Harpoon Torpedo, Icicle Coat, Belly Flop, Horn Attack, Heat Top. Level. High Champion. Galgamon, outlevels Bergermon and Akakumon. This is just great, huffs out Yole. Yole battles aren't settled with the levels of the Digimon are in life. If you have a good strategy you can beat any powerful opponent, Cody said, earning looks of shock from his friends. He ignored their looks and looked over to Akakumon, who was searching for wisdom.
Battle. Ikakumen and Wisdom. Come on out and fight, Ikakumen shouted out into the open.
If that's what you want, so be it, Wisdom said as he walked out from behind Akakumon, and then shocked everyone there, except for Wisdom's companions, when he just walked onto the water with his hands in his pockets. Let's see how much you can take, he said as he brought his hands out of his pockets, and leaked some chakra into the surrounding shadows. He then made a punching motion with his right fist, and a fist shot out of a shadow and struck Akakumon in his face, knocking him off balance slightly. What was that? Joe demands, shocked, running towards the pond, and stops inches from the edge. That was my Kageken. It allows me to fight with my shadow, he explained just as he threw another punch, but Akakumon was ready and dived into the water to avoid it. So you dived into the water to avoid my strikes. Good move, I'll give you that, he said, closing his eyes and waited for Akakumon to resurface. Harpoon Torpedo. Akakumon shouted from underwater and shot 3 torpedoes from his horn. Wisdom heard the shouts and his eyes widen as 2 torpedoes shot out from both sides of him, and the last one coming from right under him. Wisdom body flickers out of the area, and back into the trees to avoid the blasts, just as they detonated, causing the water shoot out of the pond like a geyser erupting. Akakumon appeared out of the water a moment after the explosions and looked around again, until he heard Wisdom's voice coming from multiple directions.
Like playing with explosions, Ikakumen. Then I know you're going to like these, he said as many exploding kunai shot out towards the pond, and they all exploded moments before they reached Ikakumen, still causing damage to him, but also creating shadows in random places around Ikakumen. Now try taking this. Kagemane no Jutsu, he said, extending his shadow with his chakra and connected it with Akakumon's shadow. Is a success. Akakumon tried to move, but found that he couldn't, but that didn't mean that he quit trying. Joe saw this and looked over into the woods where he saw the shadow extending from, and looked back at Akakumon and then got an idea. Akakumon, can you still fire your torpedo? Joe asked his partner. Akakumon wasn't sure, but he tried what he requested. Harpoon Torpedo, he shouts, firing 2 torpedoes into the forest, making Wisdom cancel his jutsu and escape back out into the open. Got you now, Ikakumen said, grinning, but dropped it when he saw Wisdom's smirk. What's with the smirk? This. Bunshin Deibakuha, he said as his body lit up and exploded, sending crashing back down into the water. Joe's jaw dropped seeing this, along with everyone else on the field. Sidelines. True Chosen. When the hell did he learn that jutsu? Spirit shouts, eyes wide in awe. I don't know, but he kept one ace up his sleeve, didn't he? Takato exclaims, a small smirk appearing on his face. But I don't blame him for keeping some of his moves a secret, Passion said, casting both Takato and Spirit a pointed look. They both turned away from her, but they did throw her knowing glare as well. Black Gatomon. Black Gilman, and Lalamon all shook their heads at their partner's antics.
Sidelines. Chosen. Oh my god, he just exploded, Mimi gasps out, her rice ball falling out of her mouth. He just committed suicide, Yole said, about to pass out. I don't think that was really him, Tai, Agumon said, looking in the direction of the forest where he just felt a pulse of power come from. How was that not him? He asked in disbelief. Agumon said nothing and just continued to stare into the forest with the rest of the Digimon.
Battle. Ikakumen vs. Wisdom. Kujimane no Jutsu. Success. Wisdom's voice sounded through the area. And before Ikakumen can act, Wisdom's voice sounded through the area again.
Kageyose no Jutsu, he called out again, and shadow tendrils shot out from Ikakumon's shadow, restraining his body from making any movements. Then Wisdom made another hand seal and called out his jutsu. Kage Kyubi Shibari no Jutsu, he called out once again, and a hand slowly extended from the shadow, creeping up Ikakumon's neck. Ikakumon himself struggled against it and even tried to fire a torpedo, but the attack wouldn't stop reaching up his neck. Joe, not liking what was going on, and grabbed his Digivice, making it glow an intense gray.
Ikakumen evolve, he shouted, and Ikakumen was engulfed in a gray light and once again cancelled.
Ikakumon Digivolve too. Zudomon, he shouted a second later with a great war hammer in his hand.
Wisdom, knowing that he had no chance against the ultimate, plus he was almost out of chakra, and he wouldn't be able to stand much longer due to all the injuries Gaugaimon received. He decided to do the smart thing, and he knew it was going to be troublesome for him a little later. He walked out into the open and said one thing that caused Spirit and Passion to glare at him and everyone else to stare at him in disbelief. I forfeit. Battle. Gaugaimon vs. Birdramon. 10 minutes before forfeit.
Mock Grinder, Birdramon cried as she swept down from the air with her talons aimed right for Gaugaimon. Once Birdramon was seconds from striking Gaugaimon, he shifted his body slightly so she would only graze his back with the attack, and turned his body around, while ignoring the pain, and rushed towards the recovering Birdramon. Gauga Hound, he shouted as he bit down on Birdramon's wing, and he heard two cries. One coming from injured Birdramon, and the other coming from Sora, who was holding her arm in pain. Take him in the air, Birdramon, Sora commanded, and Birdramon complied, flying high into the air with Gaugaimon still having a firm grip on her wing, making the flight real unstable. Once she got high enough, she heard Sora calling out to her again. Now shake him off and attack him, while he's still suspended in the air. Birdramon nods wordlessly and increased her body temperature, making it too hot for Gaugaimon to hold on any longer, and he fell, heading on a crash course towards the ground. Birdramon then flew down at Gaugaimon with her talons aimed at him, preparing to strike again. Mock Grinder, she called out as she stuck Gaugaimon multiple times in the back, making him cry out in pain, and fell towards the ground at a faster rate. Unfortunate for him, Birdramon wasn't done attacking yet.
Meteor Wing, shouted the two voices of Birdramon and Sora. The attacks collided with Gaugaimon's back again, making him wince in pain this time. He saw the ground approaching fast and opened his mouth wide. Spiral blow, he shouts, blowing out a tornado from his mouth, and it connects with the ground, launching him back into the air, where a surprised Birdramon flew. Before she could react, Gaugaimon flipped his body around and brought his claws over his chest, forming an X. Double dash claw, and with that he clawed Birdramon across her chest, making her and Sora to scream out in pain. Moments later, Birdramon evolved back into Piomon, and Sora collapsed to the ground holding her chest in pain. Piomon was unconscious, and Gaugaimon knew she wouldn't survive the fall, so he used his scarf, and grabbed her with it, landing on the ground with the grunt. He then walks slowly over to Sora and lifts her up as well, and places her along with Piomon on his back. With that he walked over to the Chosen and placed them both on the ground in front of Tai. Right when he was about to help out Wisdom, that's when he heard him forfeit. Sidelines. True Chosen. Present. That lazy bastard. This is the second time he's done something like this, Spirit said, crossing his arms over his chest, walking over to the others with Black Gatomon on his shoulders, checking over her claws. Takato, or now Ahenge Chaos, walked with him, trying to figure out why Wisdom forfeited the match. Maybe he quit because he ran out of chakra or something, he said, shrugging his shoulders with Black Gilman by his side. It's either that or he's just lazy, Passion adds, also walking with them with Lalamon in her arms. Probably both, Chaos and Spirit said in unison. They looked at each other and then laughed, while Passion just rolled her eyes in annoyance. Soon they stood in the middle of the field with the other Chosen, and once again Passion held up her hand and a microphone landed in it. Before she could start her commentary, Chaos walked up to her. Passion, where do you keep getting those microphones from? He asked, much to everyone else's, except for Spirit's curiosity. Passion walks up to him and got into his face, making him blush slightly at how close they were. It's, she said in a teasing and mischievous voice. If it's a secret,
How does he know it? Argues Chaos, pointing over at Spirit, who looked at him with a raised eyebrow. I don't know, she said, shrugging her shoulders. Maybe he found out the secret or just managed to find a different way to summon one. The others looked at them confusedly, and before they knew it, Passion was in front of them with the microphone to her mouth. The last match was spectacular. Sure, Akakumon and Joe won by forfeit, but they did put a great fight with the brilliant tactician Wisdom. Wisdom had Akakumon in a corner with his combination of exploding tags, shadow jutsu and shadow clones, but he still fell under the power of Akakumon. No Zudomon and Joe. Now you may all be wondering why Wisdom had given up. Well, let's ask him ourselves, she said, walking over to an annoyed Wisdom, who was trying his best at trying to find the nearest escape route, and once again, before he could get away, he was captured by Passion. Now Wisdom, please tell the audience why you had forfeited your match, she said, pointing the microphone to Wisdom so he could answer. Wisdom sighed, knowing he wouldn't be able to get out of this, answered the troublesome question. My reasons are my own, but I rather well tell you, then be beat to a pulp, he said in monotone, while looking up at the passing clouds, ignoring Passion's glare. I forfeited because I ran out of chakra and I knew I wouldn't stand a chance against Zudomon, who was a high ultimate, bordering on a low mega in power, he explained simply. He would have added another reason, but he didn't want to blow his cover. Yet. Okay, now you have it. But if you ask me, he was just being lazy, when she said that she received a glare from Wisdom, much to everyone else's amusement. And let's not forget the fight between Gaugamon and Bergermon with Sora the Child of Love, she said, earning loud applause from around the forest, and the people could have swore they heard someone shout, I love you, Sora, but they were probably just imagining it. Like I've said before, you can't call the old generation weak, she said, grinning like a cat, while the other original Chosen smiled at the compliment. Sure, Bergermon was defeated by quick thinking on Gaugamon's part, but she never let up, and with the commands Sora sent her. It's no wonder they made it as far as they did, she said with giggle. Now this concludes today's Chosen tournament. The next one shall be held in an undetermined time, but when it happens it will be big. We will have new competitors and new Digimon fighting for the belt to see who is the ultimate Chosen of all Chosen. So stay tuned, because we may return in a few months. We will be selling tickets and other things during the next one, so don't miss it, she announces, and the cheering was almost overwhelming this time. Once the cheering ended, they all turned to her, giving her questionable glances. Passion, what was up with the cheering? Spirit asked, glaring slightly at her. She gave him a confused look, but answered anyway. You don't know, he shook his head along with the others. Well, with the help of our boss. I managed to broadcast the fights we just had across the digital world, along in some of the Chosen children homes around the world, she said nonchalantly. The others stared at her with slack jaws and wide eyes. She actually agreed to that? Wisdom asked in disbelief, and Passion nodded her head yes. So you're saying that our parents probably saw our fights? Carrie asked, focusing her gaze on Chaos, who shifted nervously at being stared at so intently. It depends if they were in the house during the broadcast, she said, once again shrugging. Now that our little challenge is over, we should all get going. Before they could walk away, Tai called out to them. How do I use this thing? He asked, showing them his D-Arc. Chaos sighed to himself and turned to face him and the other Chosen. I'm the only one who knows how to use it out of the four of us, so I will have to show you how to use it when I show Mimi. I'll stop by your house, Taichi-san, to teach you and her in 3 days' time. But I will only do it in private, so no others could show up, he explains, then walks away with the others and vanishing in the wind. Now what, Tai? Carrie asked, walking up to her older brother. I guess we do as he says. So I'm guessing only Mimi and I can be at home when he shows up, he said with his eyes narrowed slightly. Carrie just smiled at her brother and patted him on his shoulder. Don't worry about it, Tai. I'll find a way to be able to come, she said, a mischievous grin she saw only on her brother appearing on her face. Ancient Arisman's base. Kazimon, where are you? Naruto shouts, now wearing his shinobi gear, which consist of a black and orange jacket, a black shirt, and black shinobi pants with his kunai holster strapped to his left leg and black shinobi sandals. His hite-aid was wrapped around his waist, and his necklace was around his neck, with his tag and crest, and his digivice was strapped to his waist. Naruto, stop shouting, it's getting troublesome, Shikamaru said in a bored tone. He was also dressed in his shinobi wear. He wore a green Chunin vest over a black sweater, black shinobi pants and black shinobi sandals. Strapped to his right bicep was his hite-aid, and strapped to his right leg was his kunai holster. His tag and crest hug around his neck as well. Shikamaru, you think everything is troublesome, Jun said in an annoyed tone. Like the other two, she was dressed in her shinobi wardrobe. She wore a green Chunin vest, over a black shirt, with black fingerless gloves, that had metal plates on them. Black shinobi pants with her digivice strapped to her waist with black shinobi sandals. Around her neck, like the other two, were her tag and crest. "Come on Jun, give him a break," Takato said frowning, also wearing his shinobi outfit. He wore a black jacket with the digital hazard symbol on the back in blood red. A crimson shirt with the digital hazard symbol on the front in black shinobi pants with his digivice strapped to his waist, and he had on black shinobi sandals with red lining around them. Hanging around his neck was his tag and crest. The four children walked into the room where the dimension mirrors were and saw Ancient Irisman staring intently in one of the mirrors. Before they could speak, Ancient Irisman addressed them. "We have a change of plans, children," she said, frowning heavily.
"Change it plans in what, Kazimon?" Naruto asked, hearing the hidden urgency in her voice.
"Shinjuku is being attacked by Beelzebuman, and the Tamers have their hands full trying to defeat the D-Reaper," she explained, much to the shock of Takato. "Wait, didn't Megidramon destroy him already?" he asked in alarm. "Yes, he did, but Ancient Wiseman must have gathered his data when it vanished and reformatted him," she said, spitting out his name like venom. "When do we leave?" Shikamaru asked, dropping the lazy act. "In 2 days, why not now?" Naruto asked in confusion. "Because Naruto, you four just got out of a battle and your Digimon must be exhausted just like the rest of you. Plus, I want Takato to start teaching Mimi how to use her D-Arc and how to play the Digimon card game," she said, turning around, handing Takato 3 packs of Digimon cards and some booster packs. "About that," Shikamaru started, but Ancient Irisman cut him off. "I will explain everything later. Just get home and Takato, begin teaching her in Tai Chi, but Mimi especially since she will be going with you four to Takato's dimension," she said, smiling slightly, much to the shock to the four chosen. "Why her and not Tai?" Jun asked, grabbing her bag that was hanging on the wall by the entrance of the room. "Because Tai is going to be needed during the Digimon World Tour," Takato said, also grabbing his bag, Naruto and Shikamaru mimicking his action. "That is only one of the reasons. She also will be going because you four may need backup. But Mimi won't be the only one joining you," she said, shocking them once again. "Who else is coming?" Takato asked, his eyes narrowed slightly in worry. "It's a surprise, but Shikamaru and Naruto will recognize her instantly," she said, a mischievous tone in her voice. Naruto was about to question her again when he yawned. "Would ever see you later, Kazimon," Naruto said, jumping through the mirror showing his school. "Later, Ancient Irisman," Takato said as he too jumped through the mirror. "Troublesome," Shikamaru said, nodding over at Ancient Irisman, and walks through the mirror lazily. "Talk to you in a few days," Jun said, also jumping through the mirror. Ancient Irisman then hears footsteps approaching her from behind. Turning, she saw the girl she was just talking about smirking at her. Changing into Izumi, she smiles at her, while reaching in her coat pocket for a cigarette and lighting it once she retrieved one. "Try not to cause too much trouble tomorrow," she ordered. The girl just grunts in response and walks through the mirror once it showed an apartment complex. "All right class, we have a new student joining us today." The class picks up their heads and stare at Izumi curiously, wondering who the new kid was going to be. Only some time ago did Naruto, Shikamaru, and Takato join their class, and to have another so soon was strange in itself. However, one of the 3, true chosen, thought differently. Could it be our new ally? Shikamaru thought, his eyes narrowed. The door to the classroom opens, and the 2 ninjas see someone they never imagined they see, ever again. "Class, this is Kobayashi Tayuya. She will be joining us, please be kind to her." Naruto glares hard at the girl, his whisker marks darkening slightly, his anger rising at seeing one of the people responsible for taking Sasuke away from Konoha, one of the ones, which in the end, made him kill his best friend, the person he saw as a brother. "You," Naruto shouts, jumping out of his seat, glaring hatefully at Tayuya. "If it isn't the blonde brat, how's it been?" Tayuya asks, smirking. "It's your fault." Naruto hops over all the desks, fist raised, ready to punch her until he felt better. Tayuya frowns and tilts her head to the side, avoiding his punch, and knees him in the gut, breaking one of his ribs. Naruto coughs up blood and falls to his knees, stunned. Tayuya's frown deepens, and she kicks the boy in the face, sending him into a wall unconscious. "You do realize that you and Uzumaki are suspended, right?" Izumi deadpans at the nonchalant Tayuya. "Yep, but it was so worth it. Someone had to teach the loudmouth a lesson. Besides, it was self-defense. I won't be suspended." Tayuya tosses her things on a free desk and makes her way over to the unconscious Naruto, who was laid out on the floor. Grabbing the boy, she walks out the classroom and to the nurse's office, dropping off the annoying blonde. She makes her way to the principal's office. Back at the classroom, everyone was shocked at what Naruto had just done, and was even more shocked at what Tayuya had done to Naruto, making it look so easy. "She just beat Naruto. Who is she?" Takato demands angrily, wanting to know who could beat Naruto so easily. To Yuya of the Sound 4, she was one of the ones who tried to escort Sasuke to the Sound Village, Shikamaru said frowning. I didn't expect her to be here. I sure did screw up when she brought her here, during class. We should go check on him. Takato doesn't wait for an answer and asks to be excused. Go on, tell Uzumaki, he's suspended for the next 3 days, Izumi said to Takato, who nods silently.
Shikamaru sighs and walks after him. And where are you going, Nara? Shikamaru stares at the ceiling, really not wanting to speak to the troublesome woman, but will do so, hoping to avoid Naruto's fate and the fate of getting detention.
Check on the troublesome blonde. Shikamaru turns his head slightly to stare at Izumi. If that's all right with you, that is. Go ahead, but I prefer if you ask before leaving your seat, Nara-kun. Shikamaru grunts and walks out the class, to check on his friend and to talk to a certain former sound ninja. Walking through the halls, Shikamaru spots Tayuya sitting on a bench outside the principal's office, staring at the wall. Hey you. Tayuya glances at Shikamaru and scowls, recognizing the irritating Konoha nin. Lazy ass, you're still alive. Impressive, Shikamaru glares at her in annoyance, but sighs, dismissing the insult. Ancient Irisman sent you here to join us, Shikamaru states. But how are you alive? I saw Tamari cut an entire forest on you, breaking your back. I even checked on you, you weren't breathing.
I was dead, but only temporarily, Shikamaru frowns and Tayuya smirks. I learned how to put myself in a temporary death-like state to reserve and regain energy. Ancient Irisman saved me while I was in that state and healed me.
Thought so. Shikamaru stares up at the ceiling, wondering what to do now. Who's your partner?
None of your damn business, Tayuya said scowling. If you don't mind, I have to receive my first referral. Tayuya stands and enters the principal's office, after getting the okay from the secretary. Shaking his head, Shikamaru makes his way to the nurse's office, mind wondering to the expression he saw on Tayuya's face.
She seemed sad. Entering the clinic, he saw Naruto glaring at the wall and Takato sitting in a chair, staring out the window. You lost your head in there, Naruto. Shikamaru sits in the chair next to the bed Naruto was in, and glares at him disappointingly. I know, but Naruto clinches the blanket on the bed tightly. She was with them, the ones who took Sasuke from village. If they had never done that, I wouldn't have killed him. Enough, Naruto. Shikamaru runs his hand through his hair in irritation. It's true that Sasuke is dead, it's true that Tayuya was one of the people who sent him on his way to Oto, and it's true that you killed him. Shikamaru glares lightly into Naruto's eyes. But it's also true that she's a ninja, and like us, she was following orders. Naruto frowns hearing the logic in Shikamaru's words, and before he could argue, Shikamaru continued. And you may not have realized this, but she's our new ally, a companion, and if you continue to act like this, you're going to jeopardize our mission. Do you want that?
I don't. Naruto clenches his fist tightly. I'll work with her. I don't accept this at all, and I won't forgive her, and you better not make me apologize to her either.
He doesn't have to. That ass-kicking you received was enough to satisfy her. Naruto glares at Takato's grinning form. Too bad you got suspended for 3 days. It could have been me. Takato laughs at Shikamaru's groaning form. Huh, but then you'll be the one people will be talking about for weeks, reminds Takato, and Shikamaru smirks, while the blonde fumes at Takato's remark. Well, at least you won't be labeled as the tough redhead from hell, Shikamaru adds lazily, smirking as well. Gah, shut up, Naruto said pouting, turning away from his laughing friends.
At lunch, Davis, Carrie, Yole, TK and Cody sat at the lunch table, Davis explaining what happened in class earlier.
I'm serious, he leapt over 5 tables just to punch the new girl. It was unbelievable, yet amazing at the same time, Davis said drinking his milk.
Yeah, the whole school is talking about it, Cody said, hearing a group of students talk about the incident.
Yeah, and she beat him up effortlessly, TK said shaking his head. She's strong, she kicked him into a wall. The wall actually cracked when he hit it, and he only came out with a small bruise on the head, Carrie said, her eyes narrowed in thought. Still can't believe they both got suspended and it hasn't even been a week since they arrived, Yole said shaking her head. Carrie ignores Yole and stares blankly at her milk, slowly putting the pieces together. Takato is chaos, Naruto and Shikamaru are his friends, so they must be either wisdom or spirit. But who is passion? It's not Tayuya. She seems to be on bad terms with Naruto, and she's nothing like passion. Who is she? And what's her history with Naruto? Carrie, TK said waving his hand in Carrie's face, hoping to get a response. What is it? Carrie asks, snapping out of her thoughts. There's Naruto and the others, Davis said, nodding to where Naruto, Takato, and Shikamaru were walking near the tree area, where they ate for privacy. Didn't Tayuya go that way earlier? Yole questions thoughtfully. She did, answers Cody. Naruto glares hard at Tayuya, hate burning in his eyes, a dark aura momentarily covering his body, feeling his negative emotions. Calm down Naruto, Shikamaru said sternly. Tayuya, we came to talk. And to eat, adds Takato, opening his lunch, taking a seat under a tree.
And to eat, groans Shikamaru. What the hell do you want to talk about? Tayuya demands.
Listen, Naruto said frowning. I hate you. Tayuya's mouth and eye twitches lightly hearing this. I hate you for what happened back in our world, for the Sandaime and Sasuke. Both times you somehow assisted in their deaths. Tayuya's lip curl into a snarl. But, if you're really the person Kazumon sent to aid us, I will work with you, if only for the sake of the mission. After that, I want nothing to do with you. Shikamaru caught a brief glimpse of sadness within Tayuya's eyes, making him wonder if it was a trick of the light or if it was real. Can it be real? She doesn't seem like the type to show emotion, other than anger, irritation, and rage, so it could be my eyes playing tricks on me. But Shikamaru knew his eyes weren't. He was a ninja after all, and he has excellent observation, thanks to years of shogi and go. Listen you blonde bastard. Tayuya starts glaring at Naruto darkly. No one, especially no shithead like you, will ever speak to me like that. Naruto scoffs under his breath. And don't think I heard that. The last bastard who dared to backtalk me is now dead, because he killed himself, after losing the most important thing a man can have. Naruto, Shikamaru, and Takato shiver hearing this. You may hate me, but you're right, we have to work together, and I don't give a damn what the hell you do after all of this. Go jump off a cliff for all I care. Tayuya grabs her things and hops off through the trees, to eat in peace. I think you hurt her feelings Naruto, Takato said chewing on a sandwich. Naruto grunts softly, sitting under a different tree, opening his lunch, revealing a ramen bowl. Remember Naruto, keep your head when around her, we don't need you letting your emotions run wild. I know Shikamaru, I know. Tayuya sat in a tree, near the soccer field, watching Davis play soccer with a bunch of other kids. The redhead's thoughts begins to drift back to what Naruto had said to her, and it oddly hurt, having not known the boy long, which meant she shouldn't hurt at all, but it did, and she knew why it hurt so bad, she knew perfectly why.
Damn blonde idiot. Tayuya wipes her eyes and stares at the soccer game once more. Stupid blonde idiot. School was now over, and yet, Takato, who should have been with his friends was wandering the halls, searching for his notebook he had just moments ago. Dodging everyone in the hall, Takato enters class, to find a curious Carrie, looking over his drawings.
Carrie-san. Can I have my sketchbook back? Takato said smiling nervously. Carrie looks up at Takato and blushes, finding that she was caught red-handed with the boy's sketchbook.
Sure, Carrie walks over and hands him his sketchbook. They're all very good pictures, I especially like the red, black Gilman.
Takato freezes, and flips to the page where he left that sketch at. Finding it, he sighs, seeing it was there, the picture he drew during his time in the digital world, with Jun and the others. Takato's face was sketched in the center. The face of Black Gilman flagged his left, staring off to the side, while Gilman flagged his right, staring off in the other side. Above them was Chaos Gallantmon. He was facing in another direction, with another Digimon resembling him, covered in darkness staring off in the distance. The background was colored in red and blue, the hazard symbol in black and the chaos symbol in blue. The former in the blue area, while the latter was in the red. Takato didn't know what to say. His cover was blown after only one day. How could this be? Takato felt like smashing his head against the wall in frustration, but thought better of it, seeing how he didn't want to be labeled as some sort of psycho who hits his head on walls for no reason. Why hide the fact you're a chosen? Carrie asks, sitting on a desk, staring at the sweating boy. I don't know what you're talking about. Takato had to try to act dumb. Maybe she would buy it, maybe she didn't know he's chaos. Come off it Takato. I know you're chaos, and maybe Takato's luck sucked that bad, damn universe. Just tell me, you won't get away so easily, we do go to the same school and class, Carrie said staring at the nervous boy. It's my mission, we were told to face you guys, to help awaken your Digisoul, and only 2 of you managed to so, while another 2 was on the brink of awakening theirs, Takato said leaning against the wall. Talking about Tai and Mimi, when you say awaken Digisoul right? Right, Takato sighs, running his hand through his hair, not believing he was giving up so much information. Who are the other 2? Davis and Sora. Those 2 have a strong will and power. Davis's isn't too surprising, but Sora's is, Takato said softly. How can you tell? My companions and I have a sense that allows us to sense Digisouls and the limits of their power. Takato flips a page in his sketchbook, revealing all the evolutions of Gilman, from rookie to ultimate, the image of Takato in his original outfit, and a silhouette of Chaos Gallantmon seen behind him or what she thought was Chaos Gallantmon.
What do you mean? Carrie stares at the picture of Gilman and smiles seeing his playful expression.
It's like I said, we can sense their power, their latent power as they begin to awaken it. We're not exactly sure how it works, but we can sense one of our own, when that power begins to manifests.
Takato stiffens hearing his digivice going off. Reaching for it, he checks his messages to see Naruto had messaged him.
Idiot, stop talking with that girl about our business, we have to meet with Ancient Irisman, she's calling us. Super cool ninja Naruto. Sorry Carrie-san, but I have to go. Takato turns to leave, but Carrie's hand on his shoulder stops him. Aren't you supposed to be teaching Tai and Mimi how to use the D-Arcs? I'll teach them tomorrow, I'll see you tomorrow, and please don't tell anyone about this, it will jeopardize everything. Takato gives her one last looks and runs off. Carrie runs after him wanting to know more. Hearing his footsteps, she runs outside to see nothing, no one. Takato had simply vanished. Where did he go? She found you out, you're very ninja-like Takato, Naruto said, glaring at his friend in annoyance.
Shut up, I don't know how she found out, she just did, Takato said glaring back.
Enough, you shitheads, Ancient Irisman is becoming impatient, Tayuya said, ignoring the glare Jun was giving her for her choice words. In 4 days, the 5 of you will be going to the Tamers dimension, to aid the Tamers in their fight against the D-Reaper. Ancient Irisman shows them the Tamers world, where a giant pink blob was covering Shinjuku, the Tamers Digimon fighting off the D-Reaper's agents. The Tamers will lose this fight with a week's time without assistance. If the D-Reaper isn't defeated, it will spread, and it may even possible invade our digital world, should it grow strong enough. Sounds like a real problem, Jun said, arms crossed over her chest thoughtfully. 4 days, that gives us time to prepare for the trip. It also gives us a chance to see what Kobayashi-san is made of, Takato adds. True, we have no idea what Tayuya can do, other than she's pretty good when it comes to taijutsu, Shikamaru said lazily, staring at the scowling Naruto for a brief moment. Ancient Irisman stares at the children for a moment, sighing inwardly. As much as she loved the digital world, the children were a pain in the ass to deal with, making her wonder if the digital world was worth saving at times. Of course it is, why else would I do this? Ancient Irisman smiles inwardly at the children, enjoying their arguing forms, reminding her of her earlier adventures with her friends. Go train, the training room is open, go use it, I must speak with Tayuya. Naruto looked ready to argue, but one glare from Jun stopped him and he walked on. Once they were all gone, Ancient Irisman turns to the frowning redhead.
I know how you feel, but you must not do anything foolish, it may push the boy over the edge, ruining your chance, the Digimon said to the girl.
I know that, Tayuya said frowning. But the blonde bastard is so irritating, I can't help but curse him and his existence. Control that feeling, and maybe everything will work out, Tayuya. I'm sure it will, Ancient Irisman said to the scowling girl. Sure, whatever, Tayuya stalks out of the room, to train and get to know her new companions. Later that night, the streets were empty, and no one was around, except for Naruto. Sitting on his shoulder was Black Gatomon. Both were enjoying the night, the moon's light shining on them, reflecting their nature perfectly.
Naruto, the blonde glances at his partner. We need that girl, she's strong, if you don't give her a chance, where will we be in the future?
I know that, but she pisses me off, Naruto said staring up at Moon. I know what I have to do, but I won't accept her like that. It's going to take time, just like our partnership, right?
Black Gatomon nods, she too staring up at the moon.
If we give it time, there's a possibility that I may learn to like that girl, but it will be no time soon, believe it, Naruto said jumping on a building, and running up it, Black Gatomon never moving from her spot on his shoulder. Flipping into the air, Naruto lands on a rooftop, and stares up at the moon, his eyes shining in the moonlight. Nothing can ruin a moment like this, Black Gatomon, Naruto said wistfully. No sooner had Naruto said this, he was hit, sending him crashing across the ground, and off the building. Grabbing the edge of the building, Naruto flips back onto the rooftop and glares at the person who attacked him. Who the hell are you? Naruto demands angrily, not wanting to admit that attack really hurt him. My name is, the figure steps out of the shadows, the moonlight washing over her features, revealing a Digimon Naruto had only seen in Ancient Irisman's archives. The Digimon smirks seeing the boy's startled expression, his pale face completely making her day. Ranaman, the Digimon's smirk widens, and I will be your executioner tonight under this beautiful moonlight. Naruto glares defiantly at Ranaman, Black Gatomon hisses threatening at the Digimon, her eyes flashing red. I like those eyes, you two are very strong, and I will enjoy crushing the two of you. Ranaman's eyes glow with a great power, a power that neither Naruto or Black Gataman could match up to, and they knew this. But we're still going to fight, it's how they did things. Let's go wild Black Gataman, thanks for watching, also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.